from the Comcast Business Studios, 97.5, The Fanatic. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas. This is Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
All right, so it seems like the tide is shifting. I don't know, Johnny. Normally, it's the media is always too negative, and you guys want to run players out of town, and
Sports
you hate
talk
our
radio is so
teams,
negative.
Blah, 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 blah. Yesterday was a weird day for us, Johnny, because we were the beacons of light. We try to expand on that today with the Eagles and the Phillies. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
This is Kincade and Salciunas.
This year, the 2024 Phillies rotation has pitched better than the 2011 Four Aces rotation.
And it's been a bunch of years since the team has had 3 pitchers with 10 wins before the All-Star break. This is historic.
Kincade and Salciunas. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Tuesday morning, Philadelphia. I'm Andrew Salciunas alongside my man John Kincade. Johnny figures that Phillies Open plays where we talk glowingly of the historic Phillies pitching staff through the first half of the season. And now everybody is losing their damn minds.
I just, all the sports talk radio is so negative. I'm going to tell you this. This is one of those situations like when you break up with a girl, Connor.
Why Connor?
It's not, well, he's the one who's still dating.
I've been back for a minute and a half, and I already caught a ricochet shot.
But it's not. No, it's not. It's like when you
how's your love life going?
We're not dating anymore, but you the old line, the people go, it's not you, it's me. No. It's you. It's the overwhelm. It is an overwhelming cacophony of people just wanting to lose their minds.
Yeah, it's weird right now.
God, it's agonizing to me.
So
it's agonizing.
Yesterday, and welcome back, Connor. You were not here yesterday, and I thought like I was in topsy-turvy land, right? I thought I was taking crazy pills, whatever saying you want to use. John and I are talking about the Philadelphia Eagles in such a glowing way, right? Tom Alvord, who was filling in for you yesterday, texted us a couple of ideas for the show, and one of them was, would it be a disappointment if the Eagles don't win the NFC East? And I didn't even respond to him. But about 10, 15 minutes into the show,
we ambushed him.
I said, hey, Tom, by the way, say it with your chest. Not a disappointment. I believe it would be a failure for the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, if they do not win the NFC East. I'm not saying the NFC.
No,
I'm
NFC.
not saying the Super Bowl. I'm saying the division. A team that should have won the division last year had they not had the epic collapse that they did that I don't think was just on the field related. I think there are a lot of other issues, and we all believe, at least so far, that some of those issues are no longer here. Hassan Reddick
I believe
seems like
that.
he was a problem. He's no longer here. Quez Watkins was a problem. He is no longer here. It looks like they got rid of some of the bad eggs that were inside the locker room, and they also got more talented. From a football standpoint, they got more talented. And as we talked a lot about it yesterday, John, the Eagles have had a quiet training camp, whereas teams like the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers have not.
No, it's noisy.
Yeah, I don't want to say turmoil, but we talked about the importance of the players that are having contract disputes. Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk with the San Francisco 49ers, their best wide receiver and their Hall of Fame left tackle. And with the Cowboys, it's their quarterback, wide receiver, and one of the best players in defense in all of the NFL.
And look, when your 3 best players in Dallas are all in a contract like, get me a new deal, I want security, and you can't give it to them because you don't know how you're going to pay Dak and others going forward.
Right.
And if you're San Francisco, I think it's even more desperate because, look, all the talking they did 2 years ago when they lost to the Eagles, and then what they're dealing with now after, honestly, they got to be even more heartbroken than the Eagles were losing that Super Bowl.
Right.
Because they peed that away.
Again, a second time they peed it away.
And to me, I look at it and say, wow, the pressure they must be feeling. It's wonderful to have peace and serenity out in South Philly. I think this is a good thing. There's good to celebrate.
And we talked about all the good yesterday, and we got pushback on our text line and social media and callers. And then when we talked about the Phillies, we tried doing the whole Guys, listen, this is a rough stretch right now, and I know they're not playing great baseball, but they still have the best record in baseball. They're still very talented. Like this team, these players don't just suck, right? Hopefully they do make another move or two before the deadline, blah, blah, blah. Nope. Connor, once again, we're what are you guys not watching? You guys keep on trying to tell us that everything's...
Can't wait till you had to spin it.
Yeah, you guys keep trying to tell us that everything's okay. And last night, during the game, we're getting negative tweets toward us.
Oh, yes.
That means people are listening to the show, which I
is good.
appreciate.
Yeah.
I appreciate you listening to the show.
Can't wait to hear you guys spin it that everything's okay. I told one guy, I said, look, did I not tell you again yesterday? I don't think they're a very intelligent baseball team.
Right.
I think they're
a lot of things.
I think they're a very talented baseball team. I don't think they're very intelligent as a baseball team. And I think their approach at the plate sucks. For as talented a team as they are, I think their approach at the plate is horrendous far too often. I mean, JT Realmuto comes up. They make a pitching change. All the momentum going on the way. JT Realmuto swinging at the first damn pitch in a double play.
He liked
and
it.
It wasn't a pitch that he's going
liked
to.
it, Johnny.
He's not looking at that going, and I give John Kruk credit. That's not a pitch that you look at and go, man, I'm driving that ball. I'm going to take that ball out to the gap for a double.
Right.
Their approach is so anxious, and maybe they're nervous or otherwise.
Yeah, maybe they're gripping the bat a little too tight.
But I just don't.
Like Harper looks bad right now. He's one for his last 20. Right.
He looks lost. His batting average down like 20.
But here's the deal. We're talking about Bryce Harper,
right? And I absolutely believe he's coming back.
Right. So this is what I don't get.
Now,
and so yesterday, Connor, we are the beacons of light. At least I thought, and we got negative pushback for it all on both sides, for the Eagles and for the Phillies. So let's start with the Eagles. And I think you had a great topic idea, John, that we're going to discuss today. Because the word that people kept on using
in our text
line from all the listeners yesterday was assuming, or assumption, right? That we are assuming that certain things with the Eagles, we are assuming that the offense is going to be good with Kellen Moore, that we are assuming that the defense will be better, not just because of the players that they acquired during the offseason, but also with Vic Fangio at the helm as the defensive coordinator. We are assuming that things are better between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. I don't think they're buddy-buddy. I don't think they're best friends. I just think they squashed everything and they're focusing on football, and that's why it is a continued quiet camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. But a lot of Eagles fans were giving us pushback, John, which is amazing because we're normally considered the evil media, the negative people.
Yeah, now the thing is, though, I don't think you and I usually are, though.
No, I just like to be honest.
But look, exactly.
If a team is struggling, I will point out the struggles. Yes.
And guess what? Right now, what do you need to hear? Do you need to hear the Phillies are struggling and playing like crap? I'll give it to you. You got it. And you know what I said? I had a gentleman last night. Kincade, I understand what your point is, but championship teams don't do this. And I proceeded to give him a month last year of the Texas Rangers who won the championship. And their record was horrendous. They played like .350 ball for a 5-week period. No response.
Right.
No response back.
You came with the facts.
I'm like, it's like, dude, just stop consuming baseball like football. Now, look, there's plenty to be. If you tell me you're concerned, that's okay. Totally get it. If you're telling me, man, this team, they're exactly what I thought they were, I'm going to tell you, I think you're going to end up looking dumb. I think you're going to end up looking dumb.
And what do you mean you thought they were? They're 65-41. If you thought this team stunk, then why did they play so well through 100 games this season?
And we did a thing 2 weeks ago about what do you think the second half of the season is going to be for the Phillies. Haley did a social media piece. And I said flat out, sitting right here at the mic, turned to the side and said, I'm expecting drama.
Yes.
I expect drama because I don't think they're going to play and win 115 games. I mean, it just...
We all said they were... Like, right. I literally said the pitching won't be able to keep up what they did in the first half because what they were doing, you heard the open. We're talking about better than the historic. 2011 four aces.
Yes.
With Hall of Famers. With Roy Halladay, right? Wall of Fame Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, what he was doing at that time in Major League Baseball, Roy Oswalt. Like, those guys' resumes are better than what the Phillies' rotation resumes are, but they, at the time of that open, and even up until probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, were pitching better than the 2011 Phillies. And there was going to be a drop-off. We expected it. And yet people are panicking because maybe they thought they were going to win 115 games.
Now, here's one that I'll give the people that are not panicking, but I'll give the people that are a little anxious with the Phils something more to chew on. I do believe that the struggles against, you lost a series to the Guardians, you lost a series to the Orioles, you could lose a series to the Yankees. That would concern me down the line in a potential World Series matchup. Overly concern me? No. Concern me? Yeah, I'd give it that. But I've already seen them sweep the Dodgers, sweep the
Right.
Brewers. So, I mean, there's that. But as far as the Eagles, I think, like, the quiet out of Eagles camp tells me that whatever was going on has calmed. Whatever was going on last year, and we do not know. We still do not know because, of course, people didn't want to talk and didn't want to share. But I believe the quiet that we're getting just makes me feel that much more confident in what we're going to see this fall.
As it should. So let's dive deeper into this. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and you know we always love hearing from you, 610-632-0975.
Even when you think we're nuts.
Yeah,
it's fine.
even though we think you're nuts, but it's okay. Phillies discussion, you know, it's just on the table, right? The $1 million question that Connor Thomas tweeted out, we'll talk about that later on this hour. But when it comes to the Eagles, what are we assuming, or what do we know? What's fact? What's assumption when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles? So let's start with the quarterback. All right, because that's the biggest thing, right?
That's where everybody wants to. Yeah, sure. You should
Jalen
start
Hurts.
out there.
All right. I do not agree with you that he's going to play better than 2022 because I don't want to assume that he's going to play better than 2022.
Right, no. That is an absolute assumption on my part.
Okay.
But the fact is, what level does he play to? I can assume that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
And that I want to say more than assume. I know that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year because I don't think what happened the second half of last year with Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, whoever you want to blame when it came to the offense, I think that got fixed.
He's never not had a how about this one for you? If you're talking about quarterbacks, he is a guy in Kellen Moore who produces never having his guy is always in the top 25% of quarterbacks.
Okay.
So then that would be top 8. And then, and that's where we thought Jalen Hurts sort of ended up.
Right.
I think we had him 7th on our list.
When we did our little draft,
we had him 7th or 8th.
7 or 8. And oh, by the way, he does have the benefit of playing with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I will tell you, those two wide receivers, it is a fact, or you can make a strong case that they are the best duo in the NFL.
It's not an assumption.
No, I mean, it's real.
It's not an assumption that they are as good a 1-2 punch as any team has in the NFL.
Seriously, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, is that really the only competition? We'll see.
I would say it's the only two, but I would tell you Houston's.
I was about to say
Houston's wide
Nico
receivers
Collins,
the triple, but
Tank Dell, and then obviously Stephon Diggs is a stud.
They're 3 best. I would think Houston has the best 3.
Could be.
Because I still don't think our third wide receiver is on the roster.
Well, I got to see if Tank Dell. That guy had a 5-week stretch where he was ridiculous out of nowhere and then got hurt.
So you don't know if it's
right. I got to see if it happened. I saw Travis Fulgham go nuts in this city, right? Let me see it play out a whole other year before I start saying this is the best trio in the NFL. I agree with you that it looks like it could be that way, but
yes.
they got a lot to back up. C.J. Stroud still has a lot to back up before anybody calls him the top, a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. But I know that A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are one of the best duos in the NFL, and I can make a legitimate case that they are number 1. The hardest one for me is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think it's better than Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel because I don't like Deebo Samuel's game as much as Devontae Smith's.
Yeah, I mean, I'll sign right up with you there, and there's different levels to what's assumption and there's different levels to what's fact. The fact is, like you're talking about, Jalen Hurts is going to be a top 25% of the NFL quarterback. I think is a fact. Whether he's going to play to 2022, I think he's going to have his best year ever. I'm assuming that based on Kellen Moore's success.
Right.
But it's an assumption. That is assuming. The over the top, I think this is going to be an amazing year. That's an assumption. But there's so many, I think, when we go through this exercise, non-assumptions about the Eagles that are just facts.
Right.
About what this team is.
Now, I think they're more on offense than defense.
No, well, Let's not.
I'd say so.
Are
Yeah.
you trying to bring the conversation down in the first day? There you go. No, but I got you.
There's much more on offense.
Right.
But how about this? I think this is more than an assumption to believe that the Eagles' defense will be middle of pack because of what Vic Fangio has done in his, 600-year history in the NFL?
Yeah,
700.
it's long.
Sorry. I was off a
Cut him
couple
short.
100 years.
He's Jurassic coordinator. I think is how it is. I'm going to.
But you've talked about
okay,
it a lot on this show, where his team is always in that middle of the pack.
They're around 12. But he'll get. But the one thing about Vic Fangio in his resume, he has his teams tend to have, they do something exceptionally, but their defense ends up coming in around 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that. His when he's taken over rebuilding things, he's in the 20s, and then the next year he gets them down in the low teens, things like that. But they usually have an exceptional talent, which I think this year you're going to see this secondary turn the ball over. I think the one thing I'm going to assume, and I'm going to assume it as fact, is that this year's team turns the ball over much better than last year's. Because last year they were inept at it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were toward the bottom. They barely did it. So answer the question for us at 610-632-0975. When it comes to the Eagles, what are we more so assuming versus what do we more so believe / we can say is fact? Like, I could say it is factually correct that A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are one of the best duos, best wide receiver tandems in the NFL. I believe it's fact that Dallas Goedert is a top 10 tight end, if not higher, if he's actually utilized, which we haven't really seen him been utilized the last couple of years. I think the talent.
Buckle up.
I think the talent is there that he could be a top 5 guy. At one point, we were saying that he was. He's just been underutilized, and the tight end, now that they're used all over the field, right? It's not just a couple of routes. Guys can go downfield now. I mean, you see what Sam Laporta did out of nowhere as a rookie last year at the Detroit Lions. There's going to be other tight ends that can do so much more catching the football. I think Dallas Goedert is as talented, if not more talented, than a lot of the guys that are in the top 5 conversation. They're just not used as much. Like, I have a strong belief that if Dallas Goedert and Mark Andrews switched, Dallas Goedert is having the seasons that Mark Andrews had in Baltimore. With Lamar Jackson at the helm, with the way they utilize tight ends in that offense.
I'm going to tell you, I think that I don't think that he's as sure-handed.
Okay. I think he's still pretty damn good.
No, really, really good. I think Andrews is much more likely to make the routine catch that it seems like every game.
I see Dallas Goedert drop things.
There's a routine catch every game where you go, Dallas, what the hell?
Exactly.
Like, what's going on? But that doesn't say that he's not a fantastic thing. You're not assuming anything. When you say he's a top 10 tight end, I'd say that's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, the league, that tells you.
Now,
like every reporter, every analyst that covers the NFL that does these lists, Dallas Goedert's always up there, as he should be.
I wonder if our texters, though, are going to tell us that more of what we say is assumption or fact as far as the Eagles. And I wonder if the idea of being excited or confident about the Eagles or the Phillies scares people, that people are just conditioned to, I'm used to being disappointed, so it scares me when I hear people be positive.
I have always had this belief. Well, not always, in recent years, because I have noticed it in recent years now that the Eagles are good, the Phillies are good, the Sixers, of course, are always in the playoffs.
Yes.
That when seasons have high expectations, people don't enjoy them as much. I really believe that's true.
I remember you and Ant back in the day talking about this. I remember you talking about it, hosting. And I used to roll my eyes a little. And I think that I've been convinced that there's more truth to it than I assumed.
You enjoy it. Connor enjoys it because we have high expectations because the teams are good.
I'm not worried about what
is fun for me.
I'm not worried about, like, when I go into the casino with my envelope system.
Yes.
I'm not worried about getting on the plane to come back home to Philly from Vegas and every envelope being empty. I'm going to bet responsibly. I'm going to do it. But I'm not worried about, wow, this might not work out.
But not everybody bets responsibly.
Yes, exactly.
And not everybody will come home with money. And that's
realistic expectations, too. I don't know whether people just put, like, I didn't think the Phillies were winning the World Series 2 months into the season just because they were off to a great start.
But
did.
you were saying they were World Series contenders.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all were.
I thought they were
and they
World
still
Series
are.
contenders from the jump, and I still think they are. They're the best team in baseball.
Right.
I just, I struggle sometimes with the psychology of how other, and it's a weakness of mine.
Yeah.
That I don't understand how other people think. Like I'll look at people and I'll go, why?
Well, you're not supposed
where's that
to.
coming from?
You're not in their brain, Johnny.
Exactly.
And I don't want to be in yours sometimes.
I don't want to be in yours.
All right, coming up next, we'll continue this discussion. We'll check out the text line. I want to hear from Connor because Connor was taking that all in. He was out yesterday. I imagine you're surprised that we are the beacon of light when normally we are the shut the hell up, stop running our teams out of town, our players out of town. But Connor Thomas asked the $1 million question on Twitter last night. It wasn't long into the, 6:40 start?
Yep.
It was 22 minutes into the start of the Phillies game, and Connor asked the $1 million question that we will try and figure out coming up next. It is Kincade and Salciunas right here on 97.5. 97.5, The Fanatic. Good morning to you, Philadelphia. All right, focusing on the Eagles, but obviously mixing in some Phillies as well after another loss last night. Tough one, 14-4, a beatdown by the Yankees. Aaron Judge hits an absolute missile early on. He finishes with 2 home runs on the game. Jazz Chisholm.
And
had my eyes on you.
2 home runs.
2 home runs for Jazz Chisholm. Had my eyes on you.
And
would have been nice.
By the way, the Yankees just went through a 7-18 stretch.
Oh, they stink, don't they?
They went 7-18 over 25 games.
Wait,
Just saying.
Other teams are allowed to have bad stretches, John?
Yeah, so now it's like, you can't beat the Yankees. Well, yeah, the Yankees just, we're talking about Aaron Boone, their fan base,
and
Aaron
how he
Boone
should be
being
fired. Yeah,
and-
well, that's every single year with
I
Aaron.
mean,
Aaron Boone has escaped like 8 seasons of potentially being fired. It's unbelievable.
Somehow he just manages to succeed.
He always does.
Yeah, he's baseball Mike McCarthy.
Right, yeah, exactly. He keeps on surviving. So, Connor, before we get to your $1 million question that you asked yesterday on social media, I want to get your response. So you were not in yesterday. You heard us lay it all out, how we spoke glowingly of the Eagles, glowingly of the Phillies, and yet we got pushback, which feels like it's topsy-turvy land. And so our question today, well, first, what did you think about that? The fact that we're getting pushback for being
what's that
positive.
question, by the way? We keep saying it.
I'll ask the question again, but I want to get Connor's reaction first to us getting pushback. Because you man the text line. So when we're normally doing a show, if we're normally speaking positively about something, do we normally get that kind of pushback?
I think we have an issue with sports object permanence right now. So you have a young kid. You play peekaboo with Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Where you cover your eyes.
Oh, all the time.
And the second you cover your eyes, they think you're gone. They don't know where you are.
No, he knows where I am.
They think you disappear.
Kid's smart.
Okay, well, now, but let's say he's 1. That's what I think it is with this fan base. Because of what happened with the Eagles last year and that being a major collapse, and because of what happened with the Phillies in the NLCS, and because of the championship losses, and the stretch we've been in where we've had good teams but haven't summited the mountain, I think if you're not actively seeing it, there's a portion of this fan base that doesn't believe it'll ever exist again.
So you're saying is it, and I don't mean to make light of this term, like a PTSD, a fan PTSD.
Absolutely it is.
But my question to that, people were seeing it 3-4 weeks ago.
Right.
And it was the schedule. Oh, the Brewers are a fake first place team. Oh, the Dodgers had injuries. Like, even when people were seeing it, the Phillies winning at a historic clip, right? They set multiple franchise records with wins this year.
They did.
People were still seeing it, but denying it. Now that they're losing, John literally got a tweet yesterday, and I don't want to be offensive. It was a dumb tweet that this is the team I always thought they were. Then you're dumb, because this team is far too talented for you to think that they are a 500 ball club because they've been playing 500 ball for what, the last month and a half? Okay, it's been a bad stretch for a very talented team that's also been riddled with injuries. Now they're healthier, but the pitching staff is dealing with stuff. Like, if you actually think that this lineup and this pitching staff and this bullpen is a 500 baseball team, right? 81-81.
I don't know what to say.
Then I'll say it. You're dumb.
Yes, I completely agree. And the whole, you need to see it right now thing with this fan base, it's not just how they were playing earlier this year. It's this season to other baseball seasons. I need you, if you're out there and you're freaking out about the Phillies right now, I need you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, is this the first baseball season you've ever watched? Did you learn about this sport in April? Or have you seen years and years of this and understand that every great team goes through stretches like this? All of them. Every last one has had stretches of a season like this. And all of a sudden, we've just forgotten everything we know about the sport and the length of this season and the ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And it's just apocalypse now for the Philadelphia Phillies. It makes no sense.
2022, September, late September, the Phillies go 3-10 over a 2-week period. And they end up eking into the playoffs, backing in, and then going to the World Series and leading 2-1. It's as if we didn't have that, that's as recent a memory as anything that we saw last year, like with the Eagles collapse. And I had a gentleman say to me last night, this is just like the Eagles collapse. Right. And I'm like, no. I said, because when the Eagles started 10-1, if they had played 500, they would have been 13-4, and they would have been the number 2 seed. There's not. We got to chill. I mean, people got to chill. Tunis, I'm thinking maybe the gummies are in order for a large percentage
Hey,
of the fan
I
base.
can be their hookup. I know.
think you could be.
I know, guys. His name's Andrew Salciunas. All right. So our question for the Eagles, because a lot of people were attacking us for assuming. Connor, what assumptions have you heard us make? You're the man behind the glass. You're listening to the show. What assumptions have you heard us make about the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles? Again, we're strictly talking, having on paper discussions, looking ahead discussions, because they haven't played yet. All right. Today's first day of pads, by the way. Happy holiday.
It's amazing.
I'm glad that they're actually doing it.
Finally.
What assumptions have you heard us say that you believe are off base, that we probably shouldn't assume that?
There really are only two that come to mind that I've even contended with you guys on.
Okay.
One is the hit the ground running idea, and that goes back to the patience conversation. I just want a little bit, personally, I would like a little bit more of a built-in buffer of the expectations of how quickly this team reaches the peak that they can play at. But that is splitting hairs. Even if you want patience, I think you're crazy to not think this team is going to be immensely talented on the offensive side of the ball for the majority of the season. The only other one is Johnny's point about Jalen Hurts having a better year than 2022.
Yeah, that's the one I disagree with John about.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts could climb Mount Washington. I don't think he's climbing Mount Everest. I think it's too high of a peak for him to summit this year. The expectation on that is really, really high, and I hope you're right, but that feels like an assumption on top of the reality that we can factually talk about.
And that's fair. I mean, I understand you guys doubting that. And a lot of that is my Kellen Moore obsession.
Right.
And if Kellen Moore ends up bombing here, it'll be one of the worst things I've ever, as far as missed on. I'm not missing on this one.
But here's the deal. Your Jalen Hurts assumption that we both agree is an assumption that we might go, I don't know. I don't think it's impossible.
Oh, I think it's weird.
He's got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, a good offensive line in front of him. He's got Saquon Barkley. He's got Dallas Goedert. He has a highly sought after offensive coordinator that's respected across the NFL. He himself did play like that 2 years ago, so we have seen him do it.
Yes.
Just because I don't expect him to do that again, being the second best player in the NFL, because I think that would almost be unfair to assume. If I'm talking about holding him to a certain standard, then yeah, I should hold him to that standard, and it's not impossible that he could do it.
Yeah, my standard is, by the way, that he will have his best statistical year ever. He's going to pass. I do think he's going to be in the 30 touchdown passing club. I don't think we're going to have to see 55 tush pushes.
Right.
I just don't think the offense is going to be like that this year, and I expect him to reap the rewards of that. That's where I'm at,
and that's a beautiful thing.
And I just don't feel. I understand, though, where that is a assumption on my part, because it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but I do think that with the Kellen Moore combination to him, plus the talent surrounding them, it's going to be an amazing year.
But, listen to this, right? Listen to what the two issues were. I think they're going to start a little bit slower to reaching a giant peak.
Yeah.
And maybe Jalen Hurts doesn't play at a top 2 player in the sport level.
But is still a top 10 quarterback with the weapons that he has.
What else are we assuming that is so crazy that people need to have this reaction?
Right. I think an assumption would be Devin White's going to return to his rookie form.
That's absolutely.
We had a caller who said he's going to be a Hall of Famer as an Eagle.
That's not an assumption. That's asinine. You know what I mean? That was crazy. But whatever. He believes what he believes. He's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. He's upset that he left Tampa and came to Philadelphia.
Yeah, but he thinks he's already on the trajectory to be a Hall of Famer.
Which is insane. But hey, whatever. You believe what you want to believe. So when you've heard all the talking points, right? Whether it's been on this show, middays with Bob, afternoons, you're the best show ever, Fanatic at night, over the weekend, everything that you've read, every podcast that you've listened to, everybody that you have talked to about the Eagles, you've heard every single talking point. When it comes to the Eagles, what are we assuming and what do we believe is actually as close to fact as possible? We'd love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. You can text in, you can call in. Now, the $1 million question that Connor Thomas tweeted out yesterday. It was at 7:02 last night, John.
All right, 7:02.
This is 22 minutes into the Phillies game.
I'm surprised if I missed it.
Can somebody please figure out what the hell is wrong with the Phillies?
No.
It's the $1 million question.
Dr. Phil doesn't do a show anymore, I don't think.
Now, here's the thing. because I saw a lot of people responding to Connor, taking shots at us.
Oh, okay.
Blah, blah. The Phillies are not playing good right now.
No,
Okay.
they're playing poorly.
They're playing poorly. They're not playing good baseball. That should not mean, and we touched on this in the first segment, that does not mean that they are a bad baseball team. So here's what I also want to try to do today. Let's try to figure out what is wrong with the Phillies. If you come to the table with, I always thought they were bad, I think you don't know what you're watching. That means you think a lineup of Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Marsh, Realmuto, Castellanos, Stott, and Hayes is a bad baseball team. If you think that's a bad baseball team, I would like to bring your attention to like the Chicago White Sox lineup or other lineups in baseball.
Just any other playoff contender.
Right. Like this lineup is very good. If we want to talk about the rotation and you think that's a bad rotation, I think you're incorrect in that assumption. And back to the word of assumption. If you think the bullpen stinks, I think you don't know what you're watching. But if you come to the table with, hey, this guy's a hole in the lineup or this guy is killing you defensively, then let's have a conversation because there are legitimate things that we can discuss. But to just go all overboard and say they stink, and I've heard they're not going to win the division already. They have an 8.5 game lead. Like
An 8.5 game lead, and the magic number's 49.
So despite all the losing, the Phillies still have an 8.5 game lead over the Braves and a 9 game lead over the Mets.
The Phillies have never had a magic number of 49 on July 30th. So just think of it this way.
Right.
They've never been in a better position in their entire franchise history. And it's still, they suck. They're awful. This is bad. Told you so. This team. And first of all, who did you tell?
Right. You didn't tell
Who
anybody.
did you tell? Because I didn't hear from any of these people in April, May, June. It's all of a sudden, it's, sky's falling. I don't get it.
Unfortunately, when things are tough, cockroaches crawl out from under the rock. And I don't want to call Phillies fans cockroaches, but
No.
you get the analogy I'm using.
But isn't it?
We didn't hear from you.
It doesn't sound fandish to me either.
It doesn't sound fun. It
No.
sounds miserable, and I don't want to live that kind of lifestyle. All right, we get to the text line coming up next. What are we assuming? What do we know when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles? And when it comes to the Phillies, it's a bad stretch. What is wrong with this team? Let's try to have an educated baseball discussion. We won't say, no, you're crazy for thinking this team stinks, but you should not come to the table with this team stinks. Let's have an educated Phillies discussion. I think that's okay to do. I think it's okay to think that this team's still good, but realize that this team is struggling. It's Kincade and Salciunas right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Tyrone Johnson.
In a 7-game series, the pitcher
Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Big day ahead for us. If you're just tuning in, we got Adam Kaplan.
Love
Legend.
Adam.
Oh, yeah, he's a great dude. Great dude, very talented, knows his football. He's going to be joining us coming up at 7:30. Jeff McClain will join us at 8:10, as he always does on Tuesdays. So some great Eagles discussion with some great guests coming up on the show today. And if you're just tuning in, here are our topics today. When it comes to the Eagles, every talking point that you have heard about the Philadelphia Eagles heading into this season, what do you believe is close to fact, and what do you believe is more of an assumption? You can climb in at 610-632-0975 and an educated Phillies discussion. Connor asked the $1 million question. There's no answer for it. What is wrong with this Phillies team? That's why you can't just say they stink, okay? And maybe we shouldn't say that they're the best team ever. Again, right? Our man Joe checks in. Are they still the best team in Philly sports history? No. At the time when we were saying it, they were on pace for it. And we also said that if they win 103 games and win a World Series, they would be the best team in Phillies history. That pace has obviously fallen off. They could still win the World Series. But we shouldn't just say they stink or that they're amazing. So let's try to figure out what is going on right now with the Phillies when it comes to this slump. What do we have on the text line there, Connor?
We have a lot of people checking in on the Phils, but we do have something interesting here on the Eagles first. That one from Anthony in St. Pete. He says, I'd like to share your enthusiasm and understand on how you feel about the Eagles, but not one assumption or prediction should be made until 5 games of seeing this team on the field.
Well, that's ridiculous.
I will not and never did place one wager until game 5. Do you think
gambling is
gambling's fine.
Right, but do you think there are people in this fan base like Anthony that are just waiting? They have to see this team on the field.
Yes, but then there's also going to be people that if they're 5-0, they're going to say they were 5-0 last year. Like that.
Yes,
that's going to happen.
We know we're going to get that.
Look,
we're going to get hit
comparing.
with that.
People are comparing the Phillies to the Eagles. You know what I mean? We are on the edge at all times because. And you mentioned it, Connor, when you were kind of going, through the past couple of years. Those 3 championship losses in 100 days screwed up people big time, and I don't blame anybody.
It mentally made people doubt everything that they see with their eyes.
Right. Because
it made them doubt it.
3 teams got to a championship in 100 days, and they all lost. So, I don't blame anybody for being on edge and wanting to see a title. I want to see a title. But I can't react to a game on July 29th and say this is the reason why they're not going to win the World Series. I saw our man Dan Baxter saying they're playing right now the way they did in the NLCS. Okay, well.
We absolutely, guess what? And Dan's not wrong there.
No, he's not wrong, but I've seen them play the way they did in the NLDS this season, right? I've seen them play the ways that they got to the World Series, the ways they got to the NLCS in the last 2 seasons this year.
I don't, and again, and I think I said it to Dan last night. I love interactions with Dan. He can be, it's weird because he can either be real agreeant, but he questions you, but it's always a pretty good exchange.
Always.
I said can you do the 22 and 23 seasons next for the Phillies?
Right.
Can we talk about those seasons next? If we're going to just be alarmist over the best record in baseball and a magic number of 49 and everything, can we do what happened in 2022 and 2023? It assures you, and it tells you over and over again, just don't react in small sections.
Right.
And 6 weeks of 500 ball is a small section in a 162.
And
It
April,
just is.
May, June, that's 12 weeks. That's 3 months, not as much of a small sample size. Now, I want to try to have an educated conversation, and I want to try to get to the bottom of what might be the problem right now for the Phillies is. And we'll get back to the text line in a second, but I do believe that John in Delco has a point. John, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
Good,
How are
John.
you?
So, I'm not panicking. I'm a little bit pissed off over the last few weeks coming back from the All-Star break. But I think one of the issues that we saw at the end of last year, and I kind of see it happening right now, is if you get 2 or 3 of the guys on the team in a funk, it seems like the whole team kind of follows. And if there's one flaw that they have, it seems like you get 1 or 2 of their superstars. I know Bryce talked about that the other night, but 1 or 2 of them kind of gets into a hole, and it seems like everybody else kind of follows suit. I feel like that's kind of where we are right now, and that's kind of where we were when we played Arizona last year.
I think it plays to what you're saying, John. It plays sort of the whole vibes thing that we talk about.
Yeah.
This team is subject to vibes, I think, more than maybe any other workplace I've seen. I think they really are. I think they get hung up on when things are going well, they're flying high.
Right.
When things are going poorly, I think they start to doubt themselves. I really do.
100%.
And
I have no worries.
Right.
Right. And we think that at some point, John, thanks for the call.
This is all gonna shake out.
Right.
Like I have no concerns that this team is going to find a way that we're going to go on they're going to be a 3-week run where they win 75% of their games.
Right.
Or something like that. And we go, wow, they're out of it. They're breaking out of it. This, I think we will look back at this and go, wow, that was a little dumb overreaction.
Right. I think so too. But I get what John's saying.
We might look
it
dumb.
seems like the whole team kind of slumps at the same time. So
I believe that too.
in the month of July, today's July 30th, so I feel comfortable doing the month of July statistics. Trey Turner's hitting .314 in the month of July. So, still having a great month.
He's having a great month.
Castellanos at .278
That's a great month
in the
for
month
him.
of July. Absolutely.
That's a great month for him.
Then it drops.
Yeah, there you go.
Schwarber's at .236. Harper's at .189. Marsh is at .182. Stubbs is at .156. Hayes in his limited appearances .125. JT Realmuto .118.
I think we can and there was a lot of it. Oh, Harper's MVP. There was a lot of that talk, and I think that gets people scared too. When Bryce Harper's not going well, it scares everybody.
It does. But don't we all expect Harper to turn things around?
I absolutely do.
And if you don't, then you've been not watching his Hall of Fame career. All right, coming up next, we reset the show. We get to more of your text reaction at 610-632-0975. But Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia, he's at camp every single day. I love this article that he put out, and I'll go through it at 7:10 with you. Players whose stock is rising and whose is falling at training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's Kincade and Salciunas right here, 97.5 The Fanatic. Tuesday morning to you. Talking a lot about the Eagles and, of course, the Phillies after their 14-4 beatdown of a loss to the New York Yankees yesterday. We're trying to have an educated Phillies discussion today of what is wrong with this team right now. Not what is wrong with this team that they stink. Not what is wrong with this team that they're not going to win in the playoffs. Not what is wrong with this team that they're going to lose the division lead, which is 8.5 games ahead of the Braves and 9 ahead of the Mets.
Again, magic number 49 this morning.
Come on, we can't go that far. Let's try to have an educated conversation about what the Phillies' issues are. And oh, by the way, today is MLB trade deadline day. 6 o'clock, you said, Johnny?
6 p.m.
So we will be keeping an eye on everything going on around Major League Baseball and the Philadelphia Phillies. And we'll also be paying attention to any of the rivals make moves. The Braves made a move late last night acquiring Jorge Soler, who was a guy I wanted the Phillies to sign before the season started.
We both sort of did.
Yeah, but he took a 2 or 3 year deal with the Giants. It was the only team that offered him extra years, and now he makes a return to the Atlanta Braves.
And Luke Jackson comes back to a bullpen arm that they used to have.
Yeah, so we'll monitor other teams also in the National League who might be ahead of the Phillies or fighting with the Phillies for the 1 seed or the 2 seed. So we'll keep you posted. But when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot of people are saying that John and I are assuming too much, which is amazing, right? Assuming positively, by the way.
Well, I do understand a little bit more because it's more raw of we haven't seen this team bounce back from last year's debacle. We saw the Phillies. We've seen what the Phillies have done.
Right.
We're 4 months into this. But for Eagles fans, I understand a little more of the trepidation. But, man, it just tinges negative to me.
Dude, I totally understand it too, but I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much stock into this team being better talent-wise on both sides of the ball. Like, the offense was talented last year, but they still acquired Saquon Barkley.
They did.
We are putting a lot into the coordinators. I remember the Brian Johnson and Sean Desai discussion points not being talked about much last year. Like, I think we kind of just thought that they would be fine with them. We saw how bad it was. You did not give you your credit.
I got ripped for it all summer
because Brian Johnson had been here,
right?
And he knew this. He knew the system. He knows Jalen Hurts. And Sean Desai is from the Vic Fangio coaching tree.
And again, I didn't want the Jalen Hurts jobs program.
Right.
I didn't. I didn't want the keys of a Super Bowl team to be turned over to two guys completely unproven. And it played out that way.
It played out that way. So I think I'm putting a lot of stock when I did not put enough stock into that, and you did. I'll give you your credit. I think I'm putting a lot more stock into knowing that I have two coordinators that have had success in this league and that are respected in this league and are clearly already being respected by the talented players on this football team.
Yes. There's a lot of talented guys. I don't think we're assuming much, but again, it's the beauty in the eyes of the beholder thing where I think somebody could be not negative on the Eagles, but they could look at us or listen to us and go, wow,
you're overly positive.
They sound way too Pollyanna. And there's nothing I hate worse than the pom-pom shaking.
No, I got you.
I mean,
but we're not saying they're winning the Super Bowl.
Fine.
We have refused as a show. As a show, we have refused to even have the Super Bowl discussion. I said they should at least make it to the NFC Championship game, or at least I could make a case.
Right.
And I think Hassan Reddick not being on the team, despite everything that's happening in New York, is the only reason why I would not go as far as Super Bowl. But this team, we talked about Final Four. This team,
you and I are right there,
should be in that conversation. To not even have them in the conversation, I think would be wrong. To have them in the conversation, I think is totally fair. I tell you who is having their stock going up and going down, according to Dave Zangaro, in about 5 minutes. But what do we have on the text line, Connor?
We have a lot of people that are freaking out about the Phillies.
I'm not surprised.
A lot of people are not happy. Now, Chris from Morrisville checks in and says, my concern coming from the Phillies is the fact that their recent play is the exact same reason they lost the World Series 2 years ago and choked away the NLCS. And while I don't like it, the scars and pain is still there. So
I think that's a incredibly understandable. I am not in the least bit offended by that.
Now,
like that to my ears, That seems completely logical, and I can understand it.
Now, I said this yesterday when you were out, Connor, and I do believe I said it last week. I'm glad it's happening now.
I get, yeah, kind of.
This season's playing out. This season, potentially. The same warts exist. And it's one of the reasons why in the offseason I was like, Dave Dombrowski just running this team back, I had questions.
Right.
I knew they were going to be a 90-win team. I said 96 before the year.
You had them winning the division.
96. I had them winning the division over the Braves. But I also didn't have them winning 105.
Right.
And I don't think they're an intelligent baseball team. And so I don't think it's all Pollyanna stuff. I think it can be pretty critical at times. I think it can be pretty, not negative on the Phillies, but I can be pretty critical and go, man, I think the things that have haunted them the last 2 Octobers could come again. This year it's coming in July. It didn't come in July.
You say kind of. Why do you say kind of? Wouldn't you rather it happen now than...
Oh, no.
That's the thing.
I just don't know. I don't know that we can just assume that it won't happen again in October.
That's not exactly what I'm saying either. These are
Okay.
just the mental gymnastics of a baseball season that we force ourselves to go through that you do not have to, right? Like them slumping now doesn't mean they won't do it in October.
Right, I got
Them
you.
playing
Correct.
well all season long doesn't mean,
yeah.
they're due for one. Them not hitting against the Diamondbacks doesn't mean that in the NLCS this year, they're not going to hit in like game 6 and 7 at home. Like, it doesn't have as much correlation as we think it does.
I do wonder, though, Connor, and I think you and I have debated this in the past, and Andrew, I'm not sure we've had the same discussion. I do wonder about this team when the pressure's on them. Because the last 2 years, when the pressure was at its most, and it was just the golden ring was right there for the taking, whether it was winning a championship or getting back to a World Series, this team tightened up in a terrible way.
Yeah, we talked about them being front runners.
That's Phillies echo chamber stuff to me.
Is it?
Yes. Look at how they've performed in big time moments compared to their peers. Like if you're just watching the Phillies, if we're Phillies fans, and we are, but like if you're just looking at it from the Phillies fans' perspective, it's like, World Series had opportunities, didn't cash in. NLCS had opportunities, didn't cash in. Compared to every other team in baseball over the past 2 years, how many opportunities did the Braves not cash in? The Dodgers not cash in? The Mets not cash in? Let's go to the American League. The Yankees not cash in? The Orioles not cash in? Every other team in baseball besides the Houston Astros has not cashed in opportunities the way that the Phillies have. So yes, they haven't closed it out. But to worry about them in pressure spots, I think, is silly when every other team in baseball besides Houston has a worse track record over the past 2 years.
Well, no. I mean, you can say that. I've seen other teams. I've seen Dodgers this decade have a world title, even though it's the bubble and I don't believe it.
I got you.
I've seen the Braves have a parade. I've seen, so I mean,
yeah, but this decade, I mean, then the Nationals will have better. Like, I'm not worried about that.
It's only 2024. I'm only talking about the last few years.
2020 on?
Yeah, I'm talking 2020 on.
See, when you say last decade, I'm thinking last 10 years.
No, but I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying this decade, meaning I've seen Dodgers win, I've seen Braves win, I've seen Astros win, I've seen Rangers win. So I've seen 4 different teams put it all together at times. But I saw a deeply flawed Rangers team win the World Series last year.
And all of those teams that you saw win, you've also seen choke major opportunities. The Braves back-to-back years, the Dodgers back-to-back years. Like, you've seen guys, like these teams also choke it away.
No, I've seen big time gag jobs.
So it happens to everybody.
It happens, and hopefully they right the ship. And I expect them to because of how talented this baseball team is, setting franchise records through 25 games, 50 games, 60 games, you name it. They were setting franchise records. I don't think they were doing that fraudulently. I think that is a legitimate baseball team that we have watched all season long that's going through a collective slump right now, and you hope that it turns around, and I expect it to turn around. We'll continue the Phillies discussion. We'll get more of your reaction, but I wanted to go through this article from Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia. We got a lot of great Eagles talk today. We'll have Jeff McClain coming up at 8:10. I mentioned Adam Kaplan will be joining us in about 20 minutes, and Jimmy Kempski, forgot to mention, will be coming up at 9:05 today. So
that's a busy football day.
Yeah, busy football day. Look, I got the itch, man. I mean, we're right around the corner. 48 days now until opening kickoff for the Eagles.
38.
I keep on saying 40.
Why do you keep adding days to
don't
this
know.
thing? Look, I have the countdown calendar for a reason. 38 days, Andrew.
until the Eagles and 37 until Chiefs-Ravens. We're right around the corner.
It's right there.
So, Dave Zangaro,
60
NBC
to
Sports
Fan
Philadelphia.
Fest, by the way.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
see you now.
He put together his stock up list and his stock falling list, or stock down,
Okay.
I should say. And he's there every single day at camp, so I respect what Dave Zangaro is saying. Stock up. First off, Jalen Hurts. And from everybody that is at camp has talked about how quick he sees to be moving right now.
How does that sound to you?
Sounds great.
Yes.
I actually was thinking about a question for Adam Schefter yesterday when I was walking the dog. I was walking my dog, and I was like, I got it.
And you're thinking of Shefty while you're
Thinking of
walking the
Shefty.
dog. Okay.
And I got to think of Adam Schefter. He must know more than what we think. Is there something to the knee injury last year that we weren't really told? Because he looked slow last year.
He absolutely did.
And I think that affected him and his entire game because his legs are a weapon for him, not just in terms of running 10, 15 yards, in terms of creating plays behind the line of scrimmage and then throwing the football. He was clearly hampered by it, and I still don't think we've gotten a legit explanation.
Okay, I
for
don't
it.
think that's not unfair.
So Jalen Hurts' stock is rising. He writes the Eagles' offense during spring practices looked out of sync. Hurts talked about how the new offensive scheme was, how new the offensive scheme was, and you could see that on the field. It just looked like way too much thinking out there, but that is completely flipped in training camp. The ball has barely touched the ground. Hurts has been incredibly accurate and decisive, and he's also shown off his legs again this summer. He's off to a great start. That excites me, man.
That really does. And I love
completion
hearing that.
percentage, we've talked about that a lot.
I've always had a problem with, not a problem, but a question about him, the passer, as far as just that he's going to, God, I got to say it right, that he's going to make the right decisions and that he's going to make quick decisions.
I know what you mean. The passing part of his game, like the being the true quarterback type of player, has
guy.
always been the question, right?
That doesn't seem
Right.
fair, though, with all the success he's had as a quarter. He's not Lamar Jackson. I don't think that he's as responsible. I don't think he needs his legs as much as Lamar does.
Right, I agree.
He was the best NFL passer from the pocket in 2022. And I don't think enough people give him credit for that.
Right.
And so, but I still want to, fast is something I wonder about with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Fast decisions.
And fast we
decisions.
saw with the slant routes to A.J. Brown last year, they were great.
And then they stopped.
They just stopped using it.
They stopped. It just went away. Now, that could be because people were taking it away from them and we're not
Maybe.
talented enough to be able to see. I've seen the all 22, and sometimes I think I know what I'm seeing, but I maybe don't. Maybe
Right.
they were taking that away and I'm not noticing
Maybe.
it as much.
A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, he says rising. I don't know how much higher that their stocks can rise.
How much can you rise?
Like we've been saying how they're the best duo in the NFL.
It's awesome. I love hearing it.
Grant Calcaterra. Now, this is an interesting one.
What?
Because
Really?
the tight end 2 job is still open. And you'll hear my man C.J. Uzoma's name be brought up soon on the other side of the stock conversation. But Grant Calcaterra says he's the guy getting the reps as the tight end 2 in 12 personnel. He's even getting reps in 11 personnel with Dallas Goedert whenever he gets a break. He says Calcaterra's looked really smooth catching the ball and has seen a lot of targets. Remember, he was more of a catching tight end coming out of college. He was going to retire because of the numerous concussions he got during his time in college. They took a flyer on him with the 6th-round pick, and he hasn't been utilized much. Now, tight end has not been utilized, period. Dallas Goedert hasn't been utilized much in this offense.
I tell you to get ready for it.
And maybe we see more out of
You
Calcaterra.
will.
This could be a Kellen Moore decision, if anybody,
be.
right? This
Could be.
might not be a Sirianni decision. Tight end 2 might be more nuts and bolts. Who does Kellen Moore want? So
Okay.
Calcaterra's stock is rising. One more player offensively, Darian Kennard, the lineman that they got out of the Chiefs. He's a former 5th-round pick. More of a depth guy. Obviously not for a starter.
I know nothing about him, so
The 2 guys on defense, Isaiah Rodgers, who has been continuously lining up as the 2nd corner, other side of Darius Slay. I know Keely Ringo has had some days where he's been
Okay.
out there,
Yes.
but by everybody that we've been following, the Andrew DeCecos, Dave Zangaros, Jeff McClains, it looks like right now Isaiah Rodgers is the top guy.
Which is shocking to me. Because I wondered about the time off and how it was going to hamper him. It obviously hasn't hampered him.
Right. And you know what's interesting?
The over-under on him, by the way, is starting week 1. You got to bet over-under.
How many games he plays?
Exactly.
So I mentioned Jimmy Kempski's coming up at 9:05 with us today. So Kempski did a deep dive into Vic Fangio's press conference the other day from last week. And he did Jimmy's takeaway on each answer.
Sure.
And one of them was about all the corners. And we didn't catch this. But Fangio was talking about Quinyon Mitchell and also threw in slot for Mitchell.
Okay.
So maybe just because Isaiah Rodgers might be, CB2, right, opposite side of Darius Slay, doesn't mean Quinyon Mitchell won't be on the field. They might be working him as the slot corner. And Cooper DeJean missing 3 weeks of training camp puts him behind the 8 ball. Avonte Maddox got brought back with a let's see if he can stay healthy kind of tag to him. He's been getting work at safety, by the way.
He has.
Maybe Mitchell can get some slot reps, too.
I have no problem with Mitchell being slot.
I want my first-round pick on the field.
No, I want him on the field.
That's been one of my biggest beefs with the Eagles the last couple of years. They've been drafting a lot of depth first-round guys. I want my first-round picks on the field.
Baptize them with fire.
Yes.
And see what they can do. And it's where people are going to critical of Nolan Smith last year.
Right.
Nolan Smith didn't get a freaking opportunity.
He didn't get an opportunity.
And the general manager called out the head coach about it. You got to play these guys.
Right. Absolutely.
And there were enough opportunities to get these guys in and play them. They didn't want to do it. Again, inexperienced coordinator on the defensive side of the ball. Hopefully this year, I guarantee you, Vic Fangio is going to want to see what these guys can do.
Right.
His history indicates he'll throw guys out there, especially secondary guys.
Yeah.
So,
especially rookies. So it's like, hey, figure it out. But I'm glad that Isaiah Rodgers is getting maybe this cornerback number 2 job, but that doesn't mean that Quinyon Mitchell won't be on the field. The other player on defense, stock rising. This is a good sign.
What's that?
Zach Bond. We have a linebacker.
Okay.
And Zach Bond is a fascinating story because he doesn't play inside linebacker, and they're trying to make him an inside linebacker. This is also not a good sign for Nakobe Dean.
It is not a good sign. That to me, and that's why I cringed when you said it, because I hadn't read Dave's piece. I cringed at that because it tells me they're not seeing enough. Or this is Vic Fangio, again, putting a line in the sand the last week of July saying, yeah, let's see who we're praising. Let's see who we're giving opportunities to
ask you,
start
John.
earning it.
You're a football guy.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Have you seen a lot?
No, I haven't.
Exactly.
No, but the thing is, though, is that I think as much as anyone in the town, I know what the guy has shown he could do against the best talent in the country at the collegiate level. What I'm shocked is that it hasn't translated because he honestly, Kirby Smart himself, smartest guy he ever coached.
Right.
I'm very surprised. And I'm not giving up. I'm not saying it, but it absolutely betrays what my eyes have seen with Nakobe.
Right, when you saw him in college.
Right.
Now, the stock falling, guys, majority of them are because of injury.
All right.
And there's a lot of battles for positions. So Cooper DeJean missing 3 weeks of training camp. That's three.
Stock's got to fall.
Yeah, that's 3 weeks of him. All of a sudden, Quinyon Mitchell's now taking reps as a slot corner. Brett Toth missed the first 3 days of camp because of a hamstring injury. He's just trying to fight for a roster spot to be a depth guy on the offensive line. Dave Zangaro wrote that he actually struggled last year in camp, and since coming back is not necessarily looking great in camp this year.
Okay.
Oren Burks missed time because of the injury. If he's going to make the team, it's a second-team linebacker, but that Ben Van Sumeren guy is apparently popping off with his athleticism at training camp. Again, shorts, they're pads his first day today, but Oren Burks, his stock is falling. Somebody that a lot of people were excited for as a draft pick, Aeneas Smith,
right,
is apparently not having a great camp so far, according to Dave Zangaro. And lastly, CJ Uzomah, who I thought was a sneaky pickup by the Eagles as a veteran tight end. We know that Dallas Goedert misses time often. Apparently, he's not looking too great. Not necessarily his fault, but Calcaterra has looked so good that Uzomah's stock is falling because of it.
I still think they're gonna want Uzomah to be the guy that steps up.
Zangaro writes the good news for Uzomah is that he's 6'6", 262 pounds, and will be able to show off his blocking ability soon with pads.
That's
Again,
a big deal.
No pads so far in camp.
Right.
So take these stocks going up and down with a grain of salt. But
Zingaro's had a strong summer.
he has, and he's tremendous, and
You
he's
hear
there.
him on the best show ever, too.
Yep, and he's there every single day. So you got to take his word for it. All right. Coming up next, another guy that is at Eagles camp, but also bounces around a lot. Adam Kaplan will be joining us coming up at 7:30. So we talk to him next. We get more of your text reaction on both the Eagles and the Phillies. A busy day today on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. talking a lot of Eagles. We're talking about the Phillies, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with this team. The $1 million question that Connor Thomas tweeted out yesterday. What is wrong with this Phillies team? We're trying
to
get
$1 million on that question.
No, you didn't make $1 million off of it, but it is the $1 million question, and we're trying to figure that out. But we're also focusing heavy on the Eagles today. I had the itch. I had the bug. I want to talk a lot of Birds today as training camp continues. We are now 1 week into training camp. They reported last Tuesday, so we're a week in, and I love our next guest on the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. Way back when, John, I used to produce his hour-long show that he used to do on this station.
I run into him all over Chester County.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, so there you go. How about that?
Well, he's a columnist for the Pro Football Network, but of course, we know his work with Inside the Birds. We steal Andrew DiCecco from him every single Thursday. We're now joined by the great Adam Kaplan. Adam, good morning, man. How are you today?
Guys, good to be with you. Yeah, it's Eagles time. I'm on my training camp tour. I was with the Commanders yesterday. I'll be with the Eagles a couple days this week. But yeah, we've got football back. I'm looking forward to it. The pads go on today. When I was with the Commanders yesterday, that was their first day of pads. So let's bring it on. It's going to be a good week.
What was that like? How are they handling camp? Because one of the big things for the Eagles this year that excites us, Adam, is that they're having a more physical camp, that there's more conditioning, not as many walkthroughs, which it seemed like Nick Sirianni ran last year. It looks like they're more physical this year, and I can't wait to get your report on it when you go. And today's day one of pads for the Eagles. But what was it like with the Commanders? Is it physical, or are they still kind of going through the motions like a lot of teams are these days?
All right, so Andrew, let me kind of explain what happens in pads versus no pads. So, first of all, very few teams hit. They just don't. When I would go to training camp when Andy Reid would be here, I could not wait for the first day in pads because I knew they were going to hit. Now, the hitting periods usually would be 5 to 7 minutes. It wasn't like they would hit for a half an hour.
Right.
But you knew it was going to be physical, as you mentioned, the physical play. Now, the Commanders, and I thought this was funny because I was thinking to be a 2-hour practice. I didn't get their schedule, so I just knew when they were. I knew when it began. I was talking to some of the front office people. And then next thing I know, practice is over. It was over in an hour and 15 minutes. I was like, wow, what's going on? Is this an Eagles practice? Like, what's going on here? Because the Eagles under Sirianni, Andrew, they have some of the shortest practices in the National Football League for training camp. So what we're going to see today in pads is, first of all, again, there's no hitting. You'll see an elbow. It's called a thud. You'll see a shoulder. You'll see some pushing, but the player will not be taken in the ground. And talking to front office people and coaches, they're reluctant to give you who's great and who's not in training camp until the pads go on because really the first 4 days you can't, league rules, you can't be in pads until the 5th day. That's why Washington, the Eagles have only had 4 practices, folks. The Eagles had a walkthrough and they had a day off on Sunday. But today now, it's just there's a sense of, okay, here we go, let's go, and now the green light goes on. It's not, again, not their hitting. But as you said, it is more physical because, again, you could push a guy, you could elbow a guy, and I look forward to seeing that. And quite frankly, I'll be out west this week. I'm talking to the Raiders. I think they're going live. They're going to. I don't know if they're going to hit, but they're going to get more physical. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens today.
So, Adam, how has the quality of play, do you believe, across the NFL been affected by training camp decisions by organizations as to how they approach things, and how much of it is CBA related? That, it's that the players have relegated hard work out of their regiments of preparing for a season.
So, John, I would say this. When I first started covering the league in around 2000, you're talking about nearly 25 years ago, not only were there two-a-days, like maybe in the mid-2000s, the second practice would be special teams. It wasn't like that. Like, they would hit in the morning.
Sure.
And maybe they would have a regular practice, but maybe they wouldn't hit in the afternoon. Then it became morning, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, afternoon, special teams. Now, guys, it's completely changed. It's an hour and a half or less. It's not really intense. Although I would tell you with the Eagles practice, we talked about this on Inside the Birds on yesterday's show. Man, they go quick. There's no standing around. One of the things, John, that I can't stand is when I go to training camp and players are just standing there doing absolutely nothing. This should never happen, considering practices now, for the most part, other than the Steelers who I'll visit and the Ravens I visit on Thursday, other than those two teams who practice 2.5 to 3 hours, by the way, it's just less, John. I think this is part of why personnel people tell me when we get to the regular season, John, I'm glad you brought this up because this is a factor. Teams don't practice hard. Well, guess what? They don't tackle well to start the season. To go on your question, I think it's a really good one. It does frustrate me sometimes when practice. I remember Sirianni's first year. There was one practice with 44 minutes like that. How could you get better when you're not practicing enough? As Dick Vermeil said, no team gets better without practicing.
Adam, you mentioned it. You've been covering the league for almost 25 years now, which is still 15 years less than what Vic Fangio has done in the NFL, which is amazing. Yeah. How important is Fangio with this defense that struggled last year, taking over the role of Sean Desai / Matt Patricia, but also kind of being the adult in the room alongside Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, Andrew, that was our big problem when Jeff Mosher and I on our show reviewed the season and the collapse. And we gave you the 10 reasons, and people around the team thought that, yes, there were at least 10. It wasn't just the roster or one particular thing, but when you look at defense, Andrew, it's getting an adult in the room. It's not only Vic Fangio, and they've been running his scheme. Now they have the real Fangio running it. The assistants, they brought a bunch of guys in from college. Guys, I was told that there was a belief that the players were developing. And Vic, one of the things about Vic, and this is the first time I've seen him coach up close. I wasn't out in Denver when he was there. I was actually there with I saw him coach with the Niners when he was the D coordinator, but I don't remember, I don't have a frame of reference exactly what I saw. But I could tell you here he's being a little bit more creative than I thought. There have been some, Kobe Dean, by the way, holy smokes, is a blitzer. Wow, and he looks much bigger physically, folks. He is jacked up. It's just anytime you get the guy who's the originator of a scheme, and by the way, a lot of teams use elements of Fangio's coverages. And, they don't blitz a lot, though. Although I talked about Kobe Dean blitzing. They don't blitz a lot. But when you get the real McCoy guys, it's going to be better. And by the way, getting Kellen Moore, this guy's better an offensive coordinator. I've talked to coaches who work with Kellen. Very excited about what Kellen does. And, boy, Hurts is really taken to the scheme. It didn't look like so in the OTAs, but now it does. So things are looking a lot better here. And I saw the question about the positivity. No, well, look, you can only go by what you see and what you know, and so far so good. Training camp.
When we talk about what Nick Sirianni is as a head coach, and you get to see so many by visiting these camps. You get to actually see not just coaches coach on a Sunday afternoon, but you get to see them instructionally coach and things like that. Where do you think Sirianni matches up well with his peers as far as how he handles things? And maybe if you have a doubt or you have a concern, what would it be?
All right, John, so let me start with the latter. You talk about the doubts. My concern, and this is a big one, he could not stop the bleeding when they lost 6 out of 7. They were embarrassed. They were not prepared for that Bucs game. I get it. A.J. Brown was not available. That certainly is a factor. But the defense quit. They were doing their own thing. I was told off of the coaching tape that you could tell that guys were not doing exactly what they should have done, certain players. And there was too much freelancing. Guys were going for sacks. It was really bad. I put that on Sirianni. There's a saying in coaching, John, when it's going on, you're letting it happen.
Yes.
And that's just something, I'm very close to a lot of coaches, and I've used that from a lot of them. And I get it. You're not going to solve it in 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And Nick has had a chance to review the season and what happened. Now, him being the CEO, head coach, where he's clearly not his offense. He'll have less to do with the offense than ever. He'll be more of a Tom Coughlin coach. You know what? That's not a bad thing. Tom Coughlin, as a CEO, head coach, won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. So to get to the other part of your question, there's a lot that I like about Nick. His attention to detail. I've watched him. I'll give you an insight. So I visited them with the Browns 2 years ago. And yes, the Eagles roster is probably the best in my time covering them. That was probably the best roster in 25 years. Just phenomenal 2 years ago in 22. But I could tell you, watching him coach and get after his players, I like coaches who coach hard. They don't let stuff get by. They don't wait to when Chip Kelly was here, John. Chip would wait. His thing was not to teach on the field. They would wait, or not. He wouldn't stop practice. He would wait. They would just do it in the classroom. I don't like that. Correct something if you see it. Why would you not correct it? And Nick, if he sees it, he gets after his players. So I really like that. And he's got the respect of his players. But I am to finish this off. This part, I'm still a little bit alarmed at how this team responded to him in that 6 out of 7 streak last season.
Last thing before we let you go, Adam, we always appreciate your time. Biggest offseason addition for the Eagles from a player standpoint, whether it was trade, free agent signing, or even draft pick that you think is going to make an impact for this team where you saw that they desperately needed it last year?
It's going to be Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, there are others. There's no question Saquon Barkley's huge. But they were so bad at corner opposite Slay. And Slay, by the way, probably will wind up being the oldest starting corner in the National Football League this season. It's 33, turns 34 in January. But, man, James Bradbury's drop-off, Andrew, was just it's almost hard to believe. I've not seen that before. He was the second team on pro 2 seasons ago, and he completely fell off. I know Quinyon Mitchell, I don't worry about what happens within, the first 4 days, folks. It's the long haul. They didn't draft Quinyon Mitchell not to start. If he's ready, he'll start week 1, and they'll know. They'll know over the next 3 to 4 weeks whether he's ready. To have a guy who's explosive, and by the way, they're not using him as a traditional outside corner. He's played inside. He's played in the box as a linebacker. It's really interesting, as I was saying at the start of this, the way that Fangio is using him is not what I had seen. In fact, Mitchell's not really played like this in college at Toledo. So I'm fascinated to see how they could use him. And, folks, a lot of you listening are old enough to remember this, and I know that both of you are. When was the last time the Eagles got a first-round corner right? It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Adam, listen, man, we appreciate it. We're excited. We'll be following all your work on Inside the Birds with Jeff Mosher, and we'll keep an eye on Andrew Pacheco for you, okay?
Thanks, guys. Sounds good.
You're the man. There he is, Adam Kaplan on the Comcast Business Hotline. All right, a lot to react to.
There's a lot.
I saw you blushed when he talked about Quinyon Mitchell, man.
I can tell you it's the happiest thing I've heard in an interview in a while.
That's amazing.
Kaplan makes you smile.
All right, coming up next, we get some of your text messages regarding the Eagles and the Phillies. But I also want to play something for you. There's a constant with Jalen Hurts right now. I read you the piece from Dave Zangaro. Adam Kaplan has heard some good things out of Jalen Hurts. How about Nick Sirianni? Yesterday, he finally got to talk football and not drama in his press conference, and he talked about the quarterback. You're going to hear how impressive Hurts has been at camp so far, and he's doing something that we didn't see last year. We play that for you next. It's Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now is the time to become a fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic. We'll get to a couple of your text messages about the Phillies and the Eagles. I know you always tell me to ignore it, John, but I love how we put out a tweet about our Eagles discussion, and people are now believing that we're ignoring completely the Phillies collapse right now. Not collapse. I don't want to even use that word. The Phillies bad stretch. We're not ignoring it. We're talking about it. Just because a video is posted of us talking Eagles doesn't mean we're ignoring the Phillies today. But we did just have Adam Kaplan on, and man, Quinyon Mitchell, I told you, I heard we missed it from Fangio when he said it last week. I read it in the article of Jimmy Kemsky, and now Adam Kaplan's talking about it. Quinyon Mitchell's all over the field.
I love and again, though, I wouldn't have bet on that.
Well, I think we thought Cooper DeJean would be that guy.
Right.
And I wonder if that injury, maybe Quinyon Mitchell raised his hand for all we know, saying, hey, I want to play. I'm a first-round pick.
Use me in a bunch of different ways. The one thing I'd say is this, is that and I'm writing down notes when Adam Kaplan's talking. Does the Quinyon Mitchell, what he said about Quinyon Mitchell, does that lead you to believe that, to me, I'm looking at it one way. I'm looking at it as Quinyon Mitchell's a guy who wants to be a Swiss Army knife, get me on the field. But then I'm also looking at it going, man, they must really like what they're seeing opposite Darius Slay at corner.
Could be with Isaiah Rodgers.
From other players and other players.
Right, and Keely Ringo as well.
And they're going, you know what? This kid may not break in right away above these guys.
Right. Or there could also be a third thing. Maybe Quinyon Mitchell didn't ask to be that Swiss Army knife. Maybe Vic Fangio sees him as a Swiss Army knife and goes, Isaiah Rodgers is good at that spot. Quinyon Mitchell can be good at multiple spots.
And he might exactly. He might see Isaiah Rodgers and go, he's not a Swiss Army knife.
Right. And one of the things that Fangio said last week was, if you could play, you're going to be on the field. Like, he straight up said, I don't care if you're a rookie. I don't care if you're a veteran. I'm going to put the best players on the field. So maybe he sees Quinyon Mitchell as a guy that he can move around, kind of like we expected Cooper DeJean to be. So a lot of interesting stuff from Adam Kaplan there. You can hear that entire interview on 97.5thefanatic.com. Jeff McClain, who's been at camp every single day, will be joining us coming at 8:10, as well as Jimmy Kemsky at 9:05. But I want to play this clip for you, and then we'll get your text reaction. Nick Sirianni speaking to the media yesterday, talking about how good Jalen Hurts has looked, how he's taken command, but he's also doing something that we didn't see much of last year.
Yeah, I think he's looked really sharp. He's been in complete command of the offense. I've really liked that, some of the plays that he has where it's not obviously you've seen him on the deep ball, the intermediate, the short passes, but some of the ones that I really like is that there's a little bit of a pressure. He slides his feet and he hits the Saquon on a check down or Kenny on a check down. So I think he's had a really good camp so far. I'm really excited for him to continue that. There's ebbs and flows in camps, and he's been on the high end for the last 4 days.
And that check down is coaching.
That is totally coaching.
He was not coached up last year.
Well, it's approach too. It's approach and desire to get the ball out fast, but still.
No, but also realizing that if there's something not there, you have a check down for a reason. And how many times did we see somebody open last year in the flat, whether it was Kenneth Gainwell, it was DeAndre Swift, and instead Jalen would roll to his right, which is one of his flaws. Like, every quarterback has a flaw, right? Every quarterback, except maybe Patrick Mahomes. One of Jalen Hurts' flaws is that when pressure comes, his instincts is to go to his right, and if there's not something downfield, try to beat the guy off the edge. The problem with the knee injury last year was that he wasn't beating anybody off the edge. He was not getting positive yards running the football. And then on the opposite side of the field, he would have a guy open for the check down. He never looked their way. That was coaching, and it's being coached up this year.
It is, and I think it's one of those things where it's not being – I don't think it's an option with Kellen Moore.
Right.
Dak Prescott said in a piece where he was talking before last year's Chargers game, where he played the Chargers on Monday night, he was talking about his relationship. He said that in the beginning he felt Kellen Moore was too heavy-handed. And then he realized,
oh, this is good.
Damn, it's working.
Yeah. I'm glad that he's heavy-handed.
And that he was not giving him enough what he thought was flexibility. And then he saw that it was working.
Right.
And then he said once stuff starts working, the playbook opens up, and then you get the flexibility. So I hope Jalen Hurts is open to the same thing.
All right, check the text line, Connor. I know a lot of people are talking about the Phillies because the people are freaking out today. What do we got on the text line about our Phillies? Again, we're trying to have an educated discussion about the Phillies. No, this team does not stink. If you believe this team stinks, I think you're crazy. They are going through a stinky stretch right now, and we're trying to figure out what the problem is. So what do we got?
We got a great potential problem with the Philadelphia Phillies here from our buddy Joe the Cynic, who says the Phillies were doing great until Andrew took a vacation out of the country. He's blaming you. So,
well, wait a minute.
Hold on.
Okay,
I can blame Joe the Cynic. Joe the Cynic was positive about the Phillies right around my trip.
Wait a minute. Let's do the math.
Oh, you
on
roll.
this. Andrew went away
July 4th week.
July 4th week. So he was away that week. The Phillies slide has really begun right after.
Interesting.
After June, London. So there were 2 weeks before that where it was struggling.
Yeah, but he was excited for the trip. Andrew took his eye off the ball, I think.
Oh, is that what you're saying?
Preparing for the trip.
So even,
and then he left.
So it started going downhill when I was preparing for the trip.
Okay,
I got
can
it,
see.
Connor.
Joe, I'm on your team.
Now, I'm going to say this. You guys are all freaking wrong when it comes to that because I tried thinking as little about the trip as possible because I was panicking about putting Cooper on the plane.
You did.
So, wrong. All of you. Thanks for listening.
all right.
I thought you guys were my friends.
All right. Let's go to one from Phil
We
in
always
Jersey.
have your back. You know that.
Phil in Jersey says, it's baseball. It's the dog days of summer. Every great team goes through this. It's 162 games. Everyone needs to relax or watch more baseball until you understand what you're seeing.
Oh, I love that. I like that one because you asked that earlier, Connor. I honestly, some of these texts and everything and some of the tweets, and I try to respond and try to engage and try to have a little fun with it. I really believe I do just say, did you just start watching baseball? Because, like, I had a gentleman last night. I said it earlier in the show. Championship teams don't play like this for a month. Well, and I showed him where Texas last year played like 10 games under 500 for a month. The Yankees were just 7-18.
Yeah, the Yankees, who just beat you last night, were 7-18 over the last 25 games.
And the manager was going to be fired.
And I get it. We're so hyper-focused on the Phillies because it's our team, and sometimes we don't look at other situations going around baseball. And it's been now over a month that this team is scuffling. But this team is too talented for you to think that this is the way it's going to be. Let the arms get healthier a little bit. Let the offense heat up. And they're going to be fine, and we're going to realize that this was all crazy talk. Coming up next, we have today's headlines with Connor Thomas at 8:05. Jeff McClain will join us at 8:10. But before both of that, the NFL made a rule last night.
Uh-oh.
That I just don't get.
I can't believe it. I thought you were...
It made me scratch my head. It's Kincade Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
97.5 The Fanatic on this Tuesday morning. Hope you have a nice, safe trip into work today. As today is MLB trade deadline day, we're keeping an eye on anything that might happen around Major League Baseball. Nothing at this time of day. There were some late night trades. I know the Braves acquired Soler
and Luke Jackson.
And Luke
a
Jackson.
bullpen arm.
Yeah, and was it the Astros acquired Kikuchi, right? The pitcher from the Blue Jays. So there are teams that were making moves late last night ahead of the trade deadline. So if anything happens with the Phillies or any of their rivals, we will let you know as the show goes on. And we're trying to have an educated conversation about the Phillies' struggles right now. And yes, it's been a struggle for over a month, but we should not just say that this team stinks and that they're having an Eagles-like collapse as we keep on getting on social media.
I just had to say again, I said to a gentleman, I forget who I responded to.
It was
here, but
Leonidas.
Leonidas. And I just said, you didn't just compare a baseball season to a football season, did you? And more importantly, if the Eagles had played 500 ball, they would have been the 2 seed.
Right.
And then potentially everything changes.
And if the Phillies played 500 ball, we kept on saying, you kept on doing the 500 ball tracker.
Right. I mean, they're just, I don't know. I said 96 wins before the year. I think that's about where they're going to end up. Right around there.
Which should still be in first place.
And they're going to win the division.
Of the NL East.
Yeah,
and
the
then,
magic number's 49 today. And again, a reminder to the sky is falling, folks. The magic number's 49. The Phillies have never had a magic number of 49 on July 30th.
You know what I love? Again, how many times have I said this to you all, myself included?
What?
Everybody is a hypocrite, right? You've heard me say that.
Everybody in
times.
life has hypocritical tendencies.
So I remember the Phillies playing well and people saying, wake me up when it happens in October, right?
Yes.
The Phillies are now struggling, and they stink. This is why they're not going to win.
Yes.
How come I can't respond and say, oh, well, let's see what they do in October?
No, you can.
I can, because everybody else is a hypocrite.
Because that's a logic. And more importantly is, none of these people, and I appreciate them being there, and I try to interact with them, none of these people were on my timeline a month ago, 2 months ago.
No, they waited till now to start talking.
And I don't understand, what joy do you find in not celebrating it when it's good and then just worrying about what potentially could end up being bad?
It can't be fun.
I don't imagine. I can tell you this. I can't understand it.
No, I can't either, unless it's just the Negadelphia thing that we always kind of go back to, and it's not just the media that's negative. It's sometimes you, the fans.
Correct.
And that's a fair conversation to have. I'm not taking any shots because I, too, am a fan.
And
okay?
we also at times, I always say it, and I'm guilty of it. Connor's guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We love who we love. We will defend who we love to the hilt. And we will find reasons to excuse make for people that we love and teams that we love and everything like that. So it's just, look, everybody just breathe a little bit.
Just breathe. All right, before we get to today's headlines, real quick, the NFL, a rule dropped last night.
I can't understand this.
The onside kick has been banned for the first 3 quarters. So no more surprise onside kicks to start the second half early in the game.
Lame.
You have to be losing to attempt an onside kick. So you can't take like a 3-point lead and try to add momentum. Now, I know teams don't normally do this, but some teams do it. And you have to disclose it to the opposing team. So no surprise onside kicks.
One of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history.
Yep.
That the Saints went out an onside kick to start the second half on Tony Dungy and the Colts. That wouldn't be allowed today.
It's banned.
It is a stupid, I'm telling you, relegating strategy out of sports. Baseball's done it with the shift.
Yep.
And to me, it's you figure something out. Well, we don't want you to figure this out. We don't want you to have this extra level of strategy. That's just dumb to me.
And I know it's not done often, but it's a part of the game that you just took away.
It's absolutely.
And I don't get it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the new formations, because the kickoff rules are different.
Sure.
So I'm guessing that's why. But still, I mean, you just took away a part of the game that people don't use all the time, but they can go to whenever they want, and now it's just gone.
And Andy Reid's 2000 season onside kick to start the season in Dallas.
I remember.
Is still the biggest badass thing I've maybe ever seen a coach do.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
Well, it's gone now.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Don't look
No
for it
strategy anymore. You
No
can't
more
have it.
strategy. All right, it's time now for today's headlines with Connor Thomas.
Today's headlines with Connor Thomas.
What up, Connor?
I don't care what the NFL says. Today's headlines is not going anywhere. They can't take us out. You can change the kickoff, but not this segment.
Damn right.
And we've got some interesting stuff from some Sixers big names. I don't know if you guys saw this, but now that you have a certified podcaster on the team, the Sixers are making their rounds on the the podcast P.
Podcast. Come on, man.
He needs a better name for that. Tyrese Maxey stopped by, and he talked about the process of deciding Paul George was the guy the Sixers wanted and how he felt when Joel Embiid told him about that. Take a listen.
Walk me through your emotions when you found out that PG was coming to Philly.
Once the year ended and all that stuff happened, I got a call from Big Fella and was like, man, he went down to the free agent list, and he's like, no, this is what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do. And I'm like, listen, man, hey, I'm going to ride with you till the wheels fall off. And I think it's a great idea. Like, the fit is crazy. If you think about it, we got, if not the best player in the world, best big man in the world, Big Fella, Joel. And then, myself, a guard, and then a wing. That's like, you can't ask for nothing better than that, you know what I'm saying? And then the city where we at, it seemed like the time of our careers is like all the right timing.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I heard that yesterday.
It does sound great.
And they just realized that this works from a fit standpoint on the court, but he's talking about a fit standpoint in terms of where they're at in their careers and their life. And we played the Paul George clips when he had his introductory press conference. He straight up said, I'm not coming here expecting to score 30 a game and take the most shots. I'm here to do whatever I can to help this team win. And he's a guy that does it on both ends of the floor. Tyrese Maxey, we know how his game is growing, and we know how good Joel Embiid is. It's cool to see that these guys not only fit from a basketball standpoint, but from also a mentality standpoint of what they want to do.
Yeah, personality-wise, it seems that there's a grouping there that makes sense. And also, I found it interesting that Tyrese said he's with Joel Embiid until the wheels fall off. It makes me wonder if that whole conversation about how long does Joel Embiid have? Well, maybe longer than we think, at least in this city. Maybe not at this level.
Maybe, yeah.
But something interesting. Speaking of interesting, that was the way it was kind of described in this feature. I would call it flat out weird. Matt Collins, who we all remember from his time here in Philadelphia, is having a fun time up in Buffalo, I guess, not wearing shoes and doing a whole bunch of weird stuff. Listen to what people had to say.
Matt Collins, former fourth-round draft pick of your Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes. He's weird.
When I asked Bills players about Matt Collins, they all said the same thing.
Like, golly.
And that's because, well, Mac's a little different.
Like, every team I've been on, they're going to be like, who's the weirdest guy? They're going to say Mac. Yeah, it's not like a bad weird.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's Tarzan.
Yeah, and just like Tarzan, Mac doesn't wear shoes.
I think shoes are a tool, and people have made them a part of their body. I wouldn't walk around with a hammer just because I might need a hammer sometimes.
Now, he does wear cleats because he has to, but he calls them foot prisons.
Like, look at that little tiny toe box. How you going to fit your toes in there?
It's not that deep. It's not that deep, man.
It's
not that deep. Now, look, I'll say this. I don't like wearing shoes all that often. Christy yells at me all the time. I go take the trash out. I'm walking around barefoot. But I'm not about, there's shoe prisons. Like, Mac, I don't think Matt Collins is as deep as he thinks he is.
I think Matt Collins pretends to be odd. Wants the attention of being
I think he's
odd.
a fraud.
I think he wants the attention.
I will say this, though. He's turned his career around.
I think the Eagles missed the boat on him.
I think he stunk here. I think he just got other opportunities.
No, I think other teams found a way to make it.
I saw that guy drop passes left and right here. Remember he was supposed to be like the special teams warrior. He was not good at it here. He's left, and he has since had a good career.
No, he's had a very good career.
He's not some incredible Pro Bowl player, but that guy's started to put together a decent NFL career, and I'll give him credit for it.
Would he be a good option on this team right now at the receiver?
Maybe, but that was...
No, but I mean,
that was 6 years ago.
Other teams found a way to use him and put him in a system where he has been much more successful.
He did not get good until 2021. That's 3 years removed from his last season with the Eagles.
And he got found. A lot of times, players, their skill set gets used
I'm not going to...
by somebody else.
I'm not going to...
It sounds like you're poo-pooing on the guy.
Well, hold on a second. That good season that he had 14 catches. Now, 4 of them were touchdowns. Last year with the Raiders, 2 seasons ago with the Raiders, was his best season. Last year, he was not good. So I think he's revitalize his career where he's going to keep on making rosters. But I'm not about to say they should have got rid of him.
Okay,
he was not good when he was here.
Okay, or he wasn't coached well. Could that be an option?
I mean, he was with the.
Could that be an option?
That was the team that won the Super Bowl.
No,
so.
but could that be an option? Like some players, their skill set doesn't get used well.
Could be.
You know, it could very well be.
But I do think he's trying too hard to be weird.
Well, I think it's absolutely intentional. Let me just get my attention by being as weird as I can be.
Hey, look, it's got him on a roster. All right, let's head to the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. We talk to him every single Tuesday at this time, and he does such a great job covering the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Jeff McClain joins us. Jeffrey, good morning. How you doing today?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We are now a week into camp. They reported 1 week ago today. We've now seen 4 practices. Today will be Pads Day. Are you fired up for Pads Day? And what are you actually expecting out of the Eagles when they show up to camp today? How physical will it be compared to previous years under Nick Sirianni?
I mean, the schedule's, just a little bit different. They did add maybe 1 or 2 more practices. I think next week they have 4 in a row. They didn't have 4 in a row last year. So far, though, it's, it's been pretty much the same. The length of the practices maybe just a little bit longer. They've implemented a new kind of period that Nick talked about yesterday that kind of like it focuses on conditioning. So it seems like that has definitely become something that they've looked at the end of last year, and I've heard about this. This is part of the reason why Ted Rath, the Eagles, head of sports science, is no longer with the organization, among other reasons. But they felt like some guys were not in the shape they needed to be late last season, and that played a role in the collapse. So that's something that they're very much focused on. The physicality of it, we'll see. I mean, because this will be the first time that we get to see them in pads. We'll get to see some contact. That's usually the best indicator, early on at least, of how some of these younger guys are going to perform. And certainly in the run game, the running backs, Will Shipley, some of the guys on the offensive line and defensive line, they get a little more freedom to have some contact with the pads on, and I think that would give us a better grasp of where some of these guys stand than the earlier practices in shorts and shells.
Jeff, a week in, what is the number one thing you've observed as far as a change in how the players are being taught on the field and coached?
You mean because there's 2 new coordinators?
Yeah, are you watching a different approach to how things are done?
I wouldn't say there's anything that's major that's changed. Again, like I talked about conditioning, I think that is certainly something that you can tell has been changed. In terms of like the coordinators, Vic, I mean, like schematically, yes, you see changes, not drastic ones with Vic because again, the 2 defensive coordinators before them basically ran a version of Vic's scheme. And then with Kellen Moore, yes, you definitely see a little more. You're seeing more of the motions, the pre-snap motions, the bunch formations. You're seeing, and occasionally you'll see, Jalen Hurts, or you'll see like guys kind of get a little confused because there's a little more on the plate for the wide receivers. But for the most part, no. I mean, I think it's really been business as usual for the team, as Nick has said before, and I agree to some extent. I mean, yes, the terminology is changing. Kellen is bringing in some of the stuff from his offense. But again, a lot of the teams, there isn't much difference between what the Eagles run and a lot of the other teams in the NFL run.
I'm going to give you 3 names that I think we all agree need to step up a little bit this season in their own role. And these are 3 guys that had individual issues last year. 1, second half fall off. Another injury, and another lack of playing time. Those 3 names are Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and Nolan Smith. What have you seen out of them so far in the first week of camp?
Yeah, I'll start with Nolan because I wrote about him on my practice notes after yesterday's practice, and he spoke for the first time this training camp. Nolan is good. There's going to be more asked of him. For one, he's moving from the 3rd team to the 2nd team. He's going to be a guy that's out rotated in there. We'll start as a reserve guy. We'll see how well he performs. He's behind Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat. Typically he's been working behind Josh Sweat. Yesterday, for the first time, we saw him working behind Bryce Huff. I mean, they'll bounce those guys around. They have to be able to rush from the other side. He's a little bigger. He said he put on 7 pounds of muscle. He had some, not so great moves going up against Fred Johnson and filling for Lane Johnson. He had some good ones. He said he's just working on speed stuff right now. The power stuff will come on again once the pads come on. So I think we'll get better indication of whether that strength that he's added pays dividends when you're rushing up against the likes of Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata. But he's got a lot, to prove, I think. Heading into year 2 as a former first rounder, right? Edge rusher, sometimes it takes a little time for these guys to kind of get used to going up against NFL tackles who are, just as quick as getting the spot as some of these guys. So we'll see how he pans out. Jordan Davis, a lot has been written about his conditioning, and he said that he is in better shape. I think he, admitted he stopped short of saying, he's exactly quite where he wants to be, but that's kind of what training camp is for. I wrote about that last week. You watch them up closely. They're early in practices, you see him making plays, and then maybe later practices, or you see him, bending over in his knees. There was one play in which I think they have this new thing where they're, again, to emphasize the conditioning, all the players will run to the touchline, the opposite end zone after they're set. And one time Jordan kind of took off before the play was kind of even finished, just to kind of finish. And then there was another time where they threw out Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis with the third team. I don't know if it was accidental or, they're rotating guys, or if it was on purpose, because they had to do that again. And Jordan and Jalen both took off. Jalen kind of, he sprinted, but Jordan was kind of almost to a walk by the time he got to the pylon. So, it's going to be a little bit of a process for him, but as Vic Fangio said, and Jordan talked about, when he feels conditioned, he's bending his knees, and that's when he is his most effective, because he's a really hard guy to move. Kobe Dean, they've been working on a fair amount of blitzes, and so yesterday I got to see him kind of in that role, and he looked pretty good to me. He's fully healthy after the foot surgery. He's been running mostly with the second team, but there are times they'll throw him out there with the first team. So I don't think anyone's really locked in the place. It's mostly been Devin White and Oren Burks who have been with the first team. But the Kobe obviously started last season as the starter. There's no reason to think that he can't be competing for the spot, because he can play either the Mike or Will. And if you have Devin White as the Mike, you certainly can have Kobe play the Will.
Do you look at it as a strength, weakness, or potentially an issue that there's so many seemingly moving parts in the Eagles secondary, a lot of unproven talent that they're bouncing around with? How do you review what you've seen and what you think it's going to become?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, because that was certainly a position of issue, both the cornerback, safety, and the slot. Now, they had a lot of injuries, so that played a factor in it as well, but look, do you want James Bradbury back at outside cornerback? No. So that's an open job. And you brought, had Isaiah Rodgers, who you signed last year when he was suspended. You have Eli Ricks, who you drafted in the fourth round, but you traded a third rounder to get to him. And you have your first round draft pick in Quinyon Mitchell. I don't want to forget about Cooper DeJean, because they still think he's a chance to play cornerback, but he's hurt right now. But those are 3 guys competing for that spot. And, sometimes competition really, that certainly brings out the best in the players. And I think this year, probably more than any year in Nick's 4 years as head coach, there's some unsettled positions. There's more unsettled positions than there have been prior. As many as 5, include the third wide receiver in that, or the slot. There's a bunch of positions that are up for grabs. And, the question, though, is do you have, the depth to have that type of competition, or is it really that close? Typically you'll say something, we have 2 good, whatever it may be, positions, and that's a good problem to have. Some people may say, if you have 2 of for one position, that means you don't have the position. But I think that's more like a quarterback kind of phrasing that you'd use than you would for some of these other positions. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Last thing before we let you go, Jeff, is the knee fully healthy for Jalen Hurts? Because by all reports, you guys are down there. He's looking quick. He's moving faster. And was there something more to the knee injury last year that we never really heard about?
Yeah, it's anecdotal. Like, I certainly have noticed it as well. He just looks a little more explosive. I guess a mental thing. Maybe he feels more comfortable in the offense than he did last year, and that affected him. I think it's tough to make that claim, I think, this early in the process. But I was wondering also, too, I mean, like, he had 2 minor kind of ankle cleanouts the 2 previous seasons. Maybe that affected him. The knee injury didn't happen until midway through last season. And I thought early on last season, even that first game against the Patriots, he just didn't look maybe as certain in his running, and then maybe that kind of affected how he was moving. It's tough to say for certain. I'd heard even later last season that like the knee wasn't like a huge issue. He had kind of been healthy at that point. Was it maybe something that's bothering him or not? No, but I was told that it wasn't like a major issue. It was initially an issue, but at the end, I was told that it wasn't pretty much an issue. So I don't think the knee is any problem at this point. I don't know. I think there's probably a combination of factors that may be why he's moving a little bit quicker this training camp.
Jeff, we appreciate it as always, man. We'll be following along all your work on the Inquirer and Inquirer.com, and we can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thanks, guys.
There is Jeff McClain on the Comcast Business Hotline. All right, coming up next, a report about a player we've all had our eyes on from Bob Nightingale and Luis Robert. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Fanatic. We welcome you in on today's show on this beautiful Tuesday morning. We've talked a lot of Eagles. We've talked a lot of Phillies, as today is MLB trade deadline day, and it's another day after a Phillies bad, brutal loss. They get beat up 14-4 by the Yankees last night.
Ugly.
And the panic continues as the team continues to lose. And look, I don't blame anyone, John. Let's get this out of the way. I don't blame anybody for being beat up right now about the Phillies.
And tired of it, like tired of what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's frustrating to watch. Let me be honest. Watching Zach Wheeler give up 3 home runs yesterday in the first 2 innings of the baseball game was freaking annoying to watch. And I texted both of you guys. I thought the Phillies would kind of have that offensive surge last night. I thought, all right, enough is enough. They just lost another series. They're going to come out and make a statement at home against the Yankees last night, and they didn't. And I'm bothered by it. I can turn on being angry, right? I can be like, oh my God, Bryce, what the hell's going on? You're 1 for your last 20. And I could talk about bad approaches at the plate, as you have pointed out, John. And I could talk about bad base running. And I could talk about bad fielding. I could talk about all these things. I could talk about Gregory Soto going out there, giving up 3 earned runs yesterday in a potential shutdown spot. Not that not that it was really all that close. It was already 9-4 at that point. But I just realized that what's happening right now is not the story of the season. And it is not the story, hopefully, of what the team will be in the playoffs, which, by the way, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the division. And I think it is crazy for the Phillies fans that are tweeting at us, texting us in that they're going to blow the division lead. I can't get to that point.
I got this one from Nate. Now, I don't know that Nate's numbers are exactly correct, but he's claiming that these are the numbers. That Phillies batters, after a pitching change, with runners in scoring position, they are the most likely team in Major League Baseball to swing at the first pitch. I don't know where you get those numbers. I don't know either. He's saying there's this
that's
analytics.
Page 4 on the Baseball Reference.
The analytics sites, and he goes there. He lists all these analytics sites you can go to if you want to get down to it. I just am frustrated. I think their approach at the plate stinks.
Now, I will say this.
Absolutely
I will say this.
stinks.
Hold on 1 second.
And I have for years.
I will say this.
Yes.
In response to that. Now, clearly, I don't know what the batting average is.
Right, and you see that's the key.
So, a lot of times a hitter might go, all right, this is the guy's first pitch. He's going to groove a fastball in this spot.
Sure.
And they're probably sitting and looking at fastball. So, you might be frustrated that they get out on one pitch, but if it's a fastball down the pipe and they just don't get good contact on it, it's more so, damn, they didn't hit the ball well, but they swung at the right pitch.
Well, like last night, after the pitching change. Brand new pitcher, JT comes in, 2 guys on base. You feel like you're getting some energy back. You're trying to crawl back into this game.
Right.
And he doesn't swing at a pitch he can drive. He doesn't swing at a pitch.
Right.
And he just tops a weak-ass, double play ball.
Right.
And to me, the lack of patience means you're pressuring. You're pressing.
Well, I think it all comes into play. I think there's context. So, Kyle Schwarber swings first pitch a lot in the beginning of a game. Why? Because they're grooving a fastball.
I don't have any much concerns with Kyle Schwarber. I've loved his approach at the plate. I've really enjoyed.
Been great. Yeah, but that might be an organizational philosophy where they I remember. I actually hated this. I was always an aggressive hitter. I like swinging first pitch. Why? Because I was typically getting a fastball. I remember when Gabe Kapler was the manager of this baseball team and Matt Klentak was at the running the show. They were adamant against first pitches. They wanted to see pitches. They wanted the starting pitcher to be out in the 4th or 5th inning, which, all right, that's a great idea to have unless that pitcher's throwing strikes. And I remember guys like Rhys Hoskins and Scott Kingery when they were first coming up. Now, Hoskins obviously was electric when he first came up, but then the next year when he got figured out, being down 0-1, 0-2 in Major League Baseball, you're in a major hole.
It's death.
You're not going up against Sunday League pitchers. You're going up against Major League pitchers that have 5 pitches in their arsenal and can all be get-out pitches, right? So I don't mind an aggressive approach because that might be the best pitch you've seen in a bat. You've been hearing that since you've been playing.
See, I think you're way too. I think this team is way too over-aggressive. I don't
now
like
or overall?
No, just overall. I have not liked their approach at the plate as a team, and I've been saying it for the last 3 years at least.
It was an issue last year in the playoffs.
You say it was an issue last year. To me, I don't think it's. I do not think it's physically possible for this team to be as successful as they have been over the last 2.5 years by having a bad approach.
Right.
Okay.
Like, I think they have a good approach. I think they could be better. The tough thing about this Phillies team, the way that they're built, is when they lose, visually, it's more painful because they can be boom or bust. That's kind of how they're built. And we got out of that a little bit because the pitching was so good at the start of the year. We're like, oh, wow, they do that well. Then you have the opportunity to be a little bit more conservative at the plate because 3 runs could win this ball game, as opposed to if you don't have that great starting pitching. And we started to feel like that was the calling card of this team. But we know what these guys are. Kyle Schwarber's a power hitter. Bryce Harper's a power hitter. Nick Castellanos, gap power. I mean, like, your big guys. Jay Trumuto is better overall, but, I mean, Trey Turner balances power with average. They're built to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and they play in a ballpark that they should be built for.
And when you watch a team that doesn't have a second pitch, when they can't hit long balls, the offense is not successful.
Yeah, John, when they don't hit the ball out of the ballpark, they're not as good of a baseball team. That's everybody, though.
Connor, it's not that. Doesn't have to be that flippant.
Well, hold on a second.
It is not as it when a team is boom or bust, like they are, where the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't even throw strikes at them.
Okay.
Didn't even throw. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber,
right,
for a 3-game stretch, did not get thrown a strike.
Exactly.
And it was just when you are a team that is boom or bust as far as the long ball, you don't have a second pitch. We watched the Guardians this past week.
Mm-hmm.
The Guardians literally went in and said, boys, we're going to play some small ball this series against the Phillies.
Yeah.
And we're going to do different things. I don't believe the Phillies have a second pitch.
Okay, well,
a second approach.
Now, earlier in the year, we did give them credit. They were not winning just on the long ball. Earlier in the year.
Earlier in the year, they
remember
were.
runners in
And I'm
scoring
not
position? Like, Alec Bohm was hitting like 750 with
It's
runners in scoring.
Alec Bohm in 22 games has 1 RBI.
Yeah, I know, it's bad. That's like
but
it's the whole team.
I understand, but that's almost impossible.
Okay, but Alec Bohm isn't hitting home runs. Like, we know that he's not hitting home runs.
But he's not even doing that.
Right, the whole team's struggling. I can't say it's just because of home runs. I think it's just collectively they can't hit right now.
Okay, I do not. I'm surprised you guys think they have a good approach at the plate. If you do,
I absolutely
do not believe they do.
You cannot win this many games and get this deep in the postseason having a bad approach.
Bryce Harper is one of the more patient hitters in Major League Baseball.
So is Kyle Schwarber.
Bryce Harper's an MVP candidate. Most years, not this year now, but he's a MVP.
He'll still be in the candidate. If he has a hot month of August, he'll be back in the conversation. Ohtani has not slowed down.
He's
the front runner.
This is arguably the worst month we've seen Bryce ever.
Yeah, he's 1 for his last 20.
He's
not playing.
He's been very bad.
Yeah. And for the month, I think it's like 182 or something.
Yeah,
it's the worst we've. And that is again, that's an anomaly.
All of this is an anomaly.
But you can't say we can't say that Alec Bohm's an anomaly. Can't say that. No, we cannot say that at all. We have there's no data to say that Alec Bohm, the 70 RBI. May have been the anomaly.
He was the all-star starter at third base a couple weeks ago. I think it's more likely than not he's still a good baseball player.
And had a great month of August. And had a great month of August last year. Like, the guys can go into slumps, John. And it's just a problem that it's the whole freaking team.
It is a entire team.
Yes.
And there's no other thing they can do if they're struggling than to do the one thing that they do.
That's not it. Like, there's no like.
I understand
John,
what you're saying. I don't believe you.
Okay, well,
you can tell me.
You need to understand.
No matter how many times you can tell me that, Connor, I don't believe you.
What do you think they want? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to sit down in a meeting, and Kevin Long and Rob Thompson are going to say, "Hey guys, let's be a little more passive." And all of a sudden, they hit. Like, that's not how this works.
It is. I think it's a organizational approach, and I think it's the organization's plan, and I think the players try to execute the plan. And I don't like the plan.
But the plan has gotten them to a World Series and an NLCS.
And it also has betrayed them at the biggest moments of their lives the last 2 years.
Or they got cold in a bad spot, and they got unlucky because that's baseball, and we're seeing them do it now.
And that's why I said earlier, I'm glad that it's happening now.
Exactly.
But this doesn't preclude them from doing it again.
Exact same. It's the exact same. You've seen the people that are freaking out are seeing the same exact movie they've seen the last 2 years.
Right.
And they're saying, seen it? I know that girl's about to get a knife to the throat. I've seen this movie. He's coming out of the closet, and they know it. So that's what they believe. It's up to the Phillies to convince them of something different.
All right, well, we kept yapping, so I didn't get to this Luis Robert report from Bob Nightingale. We'll dive deeper into it coming up next. But Luis Robert is not coming to Philadelphia, it seems, according to Bob Nightingale. According to Bob Nightingale, Luis Robert ain't going anywhere, which is wild. If you're the Chicago White Sox, the worst team in baseball. He put out a tweet at 8 o'clock of all the players he believes the top 5 most likely players to be traded today, and the top 5 most likely teams to make an acquisition. Are the Phillies on that list? I'll tell you next. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, a Birds Insider Update.
It's been a big Eagles day today with great guests. We thank Adam Kaplan and Jeff McClain for joining the show. You can hear those again on 97.5 thefanatic.com. Still to come, Jimmy Kempski will be joining the show at 9:05. But we've also been mixing in the Phillies. And I'll get back to the text in a second, I promise. You and I were chit-chatting. Connor, we were chit-chatting last segment. Because, look, we see the issues, right?
Absolutely.
We're just not going to say that they stink and they're going to lose the division and they're going to lose in the first round and they're not going to win the World Series. Like, I can't be in that headspace. That's a headspace I do not want to be in.
No, dude, as much as, like, I disagree kind of with the approach conversation we were just having. Like, that John and I are on opposite sides of that.
Yeah.
This is the healthy discussion that we should be having about this team. Things are not perfect.
Yeah, not just saying they suck.
Like, things are not perfect with the Philadelphia Phillies, and they're going to run away with this and win the World Series, and everything's easy. Like, that's not how this works.
I've seen fire Rob Thompson tweets. Like,
which is so stupid.
Like, enough. All right. Bob Nightingale does a tremendous job covering Major League Baseball, USA Today.
Also a great bird.
At 8 o'clock this morning, he put out this tweet. I'm
That's
just
worse than
ignoring
the
it.
jet joke anytime.
10 shopping hours remain. So this was at 8 a.m., so we're almost at 9 until the trade deadline. Here are the 5 most likely players to be traded. Jack Flaherty of the Tigers is having a great resurgence of a career.
And he has playoff experience.
Yep. I was surprised that St. Louis got rid of him to begin with, but he's having a great resurgence with the Detroit Tigers. Garrett Crochet with the White Sox. He's had that weird, I don't want to pitch too much.
Yeah, I'd be worried about him.
I don't want to be a bullpen arm.
I'd be worried about him.
I want to be a starter, but I don't want to pitch too much, is what he's basically saying.
Keep me away from him. A mile away.
Tanner Scott, closer with the Marlins, lefty, great arms, having a great season. A guy that we all kind of have our eye on, especially with Alvarado struggling and Gregory Soto being a disappointment.
But now they got Estevez, so I do not believe that's even an option.
Right, but look,
for us.
You want to go the other side, lefty.
I don't think they're doing that.
Yandy Diaz of the Rays is a potential candidate. And Lucas Erceg, who we just saw not long ago with the Athletics, he's a reliever. So not the Mason Miller reliever of the Athletics, but Erceg. So those are the 5 most likely players to be dealt today. Here are the 5 most likely teams to make a trade today.
Okay.
The New York Yankees, who are currently in town.
Sure.
And they have not stopped after getting Jazz Chisholm. The San Diego Padres. The Dodgers, obviously, no surprise there. The Orioles, who have already been active. Zach Eflin was on the mound for them yesterday, who they acquired from the Rays. And how about the New York Mets?
I'm not shocked.
Now, notice the Phillies have not been mentioned.
I don't. Dave Dombrowski said the other night, open mic, and I don't believe he was trying to deflect.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're pretty much done.
I think so, too.
I want one more bullpen arm or back end of the rotation guy.
Right.
I just think people are not. If the Phillies don't do anything today,
they've already done 2 moves.
It's almost like, you know what it is? Remember when they traded for Buddy Hield, the Sixers did, but it was like the first move of the day, and then nothing else happened the rest of the day, and then everybody was upset that they only got Buddy Hield, even though he was, at the time, the best player available for the trade deadline. The Phillies made some nice acquisitions with Austin Hayes and Estevez. Like, those were 2 good moves.
Did.
But the fact that it happened, like, 2 days ago and 3 days ago and not on deadline day, there will be people that will be upset that they don't do anything today.
Yeah, but like you brought it up earlier, the lineup that they put out yesterday. I know they lost 14-4, whatever. It's one day of baseball. But everybody in that lineup has been an all-star before besides Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott.
Right.
And those guys at their peaks, like they could be all-star caliber players for 2 weeks. Stott more so than Marsh. Stott had an almost all-star season last year. Like, and then you look at the starting rotation when Taijuan Walker's healthy. Every single starter, when this is a healthy 5 that you started the season with, they've all been all-stars before. You go to the bullpen, your 3 biggest high-leverage arms have all been all-stars before. Like, how much more can you possibly add to this team?
To the fan that would be contrary to that, are you worried about Zach Wheeler's back? He had a great outing 2 outings ago. Last night did not look himself. Are you worried about right now? Ranger Suarez's back is a major concern.
No, you're absolutely right. That's not the argument I'm making.
No, I get you.
I'm just saying at their peak, they're incredibly talented. They're not at their peak right now, but you can't add guys. Like, you don't want to trade for 2 weeks of a guy until people get healthy again.
I think what a lot of people are worried about is, will they get back to that peak? I think that's what there are people that are worried about. They're living in the moment right now, and the moment is not a good one.
I told you, object permanence.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see it right now. It doesn't exist, but it definitely still does, folks.
No,
this team's still good.
This team is still very, very good. And Bob Nightingale saying that Luis Robert looks like he's going to be staying. Now, I said to you, John, maybe.
He's also hitting 208.
Yeah, but there's
something.
Upside
I think people are Yeah, but I don't think they're getting the return that they think they were going to get, and now maybe you wait till the offseason and you get
Maybe, and I also think this could be one last-ditch effort for the White Sox to go, you know what, we're not going to trade him and then try to up the offer a little bit.
What, no Juan Soto type package?
Right, yeah,
Who
exactly.
would've guessed?
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, that was crazy talk.
I don't see it.
I think he's a good ball player, but
I don't
he's
think
not
anybody saw it.
He's not
That's why
Juan
it's not
Soto. Yeah, he's definitely not Juan Soto.
A lot of Philly fans just couldn't get over the guy, and I think they've probably seen him play 5 times.
Yeah. I think he's a good ball player. I don't think he's Juan Soto. And I think that talk was crazy when it first came out of the White Sox camp. All right, coming up next, we get to your texts, we get to your calls. Also, Jimmy Kempski is going to be joining us at 9:05, so we'll have a few minutes before we get to Jimmy. Another day of training camp ahead of us, Pads Day for the Eagles. So we'll talk to Jimmy Kempski about his observations so far from camp. And I want to do a little exercise as the show goes on. Dave Zangaro had the stock rising, stock falling article. Who do we need to see stock going up during camp? We'll talk about that later on the show at some point. It's Kincade Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Hurts?
MLB trade deadline day. Talking a lot about the Phillies because people are doom and gloom, and I don't blame anybody for being down in the dumps. I just don't want to go too far and say the team sucks and they're not going to win anything. I think that's a bit too much. We have Jimmy Kemsky from the Philly Voice joining us at 9:05 to talk some birds. But what do we have on the text line, Connor, about our fighting Phils? We're trying to have an educated conversation about what's going on with this team.
That isn't too crazy.
Oh, sorry. I thought you guys were continuing. Listen, there are a lot of people that are losing their minds here. And a check-in first-time texter says the Phillies are trying to hit home runs every at-bat. When they were the best team, they were hitting more doubles and singles. Need to go back to easy swings. That may be John from Westchester who sent that text, but it is right on line with Mr. Kincaid's line of thinking.
Seems like a smart one.
So there are people in the fan base that do believe that. And I understand where they're coming from.
This is hitting season, man. Isn't this?
We need it to be like 99 degrees again. You said it was going to be hot this week?
Yeah, it is. But remember, they were actually hitting the ball pretty well earlier on in the year when it wasn't hitting season.
They were.
Maybe when it's colder in October, that's a good sign.
I mean, I look at a guy like Alec Boehm, and the amount of times he was hitting the ball and not making fly ball outs. I mean, he's getting caught up in, and I wonder, because somebody asked me last night, I don't know if you saw it on the social, someone going, did that home run derby screw up his swing a little bit? I'm like, okay, that's a little extreme for me, but that's been a problem in the past with people.
Yeah, but
said they've seen that.
Boehm hasn't really been a problem. He's just not driving in runs. Like he's getting
hits.
So July 19th, this is the first back that just a quick Google search brings you. He's batting 297 July 19th. 10 days later, July 29th, he's hitting 295. Like he's still having multi-hit games. He's just not driving in runs. Now, part of it is there might not be guys on base in front of him.
I think that could be very well a big problem. And I said to him last night, I said, I do not think Alec Boehm is a problem, is how I responded. I said, we're just looking at it different. I don't see Alec Boehm as a problem. You know, if we're talking about issues this team's having right now.
He's got a hit in 7 of his last 10 games and has 3 multi-hit games during that span, has walked a lot. So it's not a problem. It's just the RBIs are down because
it's not a problem.
Can't drive nobody in.
Is it wild if I don't see a lot of the offensive stuff as a problem? Like, I know how it looks right now.
The worst month of Harper's career, as a Philly, we all agree there's
turn it around.
That he's going to turn it
That's
around.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, if you're watching the Sixers and Joel Embiid has a bad game, that's less of a problem than if you're watching the Sixers and guys 6, 7, 8 off the bench are just lost.
Right.
Like, it's not so much that the Phillies have been great this year. It's that these players that have been great for them this year have also largely had great track records in their careers. So maybe that's why I'm not worried.
No, I mean, and that's why I'm not. That's why I'm saying you're crazy if you're saying like the season's over. Like it's okay to be upset. I'm upset. I'm not having fun watching the Phillies right now.
I said, look, concern is one thing, worry is another.
Right.
I have concerns.
Right.
But I've had concerns about this team last year, the year before, and everything. And so those concerns haven't gone away. But worry? No. I'm not worried about this team winning the division. I'm not worried about this team winning in the 90s. I said 96. I'll stick with it. And just hang there.
We got Jimmy Kemsky in a minute. Let's go to T-Love who wants to talk about the Phils. What's up, T-Love?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's up, man?
What's up, buddy?
Listen, anybody that thinks the Phils are a bad team is just crazy, okay? I mean, obviously they're a good team. Now, we've seen the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Braves go pretty much the whole season out in front and fall at the end.
Yes, we have.
We have seen, and these are considered to be the best teams in baseball. Okay? Now, the Phillies, when the Phillies lose, they lose the same way. They lose the same way. You can, if the starters don't go at least 7 innings, the bullpen, which has been better this year, you don't want to trust Alvarado. You don't want to trust Soto, and oh my God, they got rid of Sir
Anthony. Yeah.
Oh my God, I mean now they leave people on base. I watched Hayes have one of the worst at bats with runners in scoring position that I've ever seen a Philly have yesterday. It was just atrocious. I don't know what he was looking at, man. It just It was ridiculous. I mean,
they're going through a bad stretch right now. I mean, they're not driving runs in. And thanks for the call, T-Love. And the bullpen, a couple of arms. Let's not say the bullpen stinks because Alvarado's having a rough year. Like, you still have Matt Strahm, Jeff Hoffman, right? You just brought in Estevez. Like, you got great arms in the bullpen, and you hope that Alvarado turns things around.
And there was a great one. The worried about Alvarado. Alvarado's he's actually had a great year. He's had a bad stretch.
Yeah, and that's why the ERA goes up, because he's a guy coming out of the bullpen. He's not pitching as many innings. All right, we'll continue the Phillies discussion, but let's head to the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. From the Philly Voice, does a tremendous job covering the Philadelphia Eagles. Jimmy Kempsky joins us. Jimmy, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're 1 week into training camp. They reported a week ago today, and so we'd love to get some of your observations from week one. Would love to start with the biggest position on the field, and that's quarterback. By all accounts, it looks like Jalen Hurts looks much better so far this year. What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, the first three practices, I thought he looked really good. The last practice on yesterday, I thought the defense definitively won that day. But, yeah, I think his accuracy has actually been tremendous so far. Looks good as a runner. I think last year he was hampered by injuries for the better part of the back half of that season, which doesn't excuse the way that the team played or the way that he played down the stretch. But he wasn't the same player as a runner as he was, the first couple years in his career last year. So, yeah, I think that's back to where it should be. And, there's rarely a ball that was hitting the ground the first 3 days of camp. The one thing I might nitpick a little bit is the ball is not coming out quick at times. Like, there's been a lot of coverage sacks through the first four practices. Of course, he's learning a new offense under Kellen Moore, so that's kind of to be expected. But at the same time, it's been an issue like in the past, particularly last year, the way that they didn't handle blitz as well, didn't have hots, to get the ball out quickly. And his first instinct was typically to, kind of from the pocket and throw on the run whenever, there's any kind of pressure in his face. So it's something to, kind of monitor as we're going forward. But, yeah, through the first, four practices of camp, I think the Eagles have to be happy with the way that he's throwing the ball.
Jimmy, do you believe that the problems with Jalen Hurts last year and the offense as a whole was that the plan they had for him wasn't a good plan and that Kellen Moore will have a better plan? Take the injury situation out of it, that he was battling through something.
Yeah, I mean, I think really a big part of why the offense, take your pick, but a big part of why the offense failed last year was because the offense got really predictable, got really vanilla, and Hurts himself just didn't really play all that well. That's kind of been like a big question throughout the offseason is what all went wrong during their epic collapse during the 2023 season. And, it was kind of a perfect storm of awfulness, both on offense and defense. Coaching staff just getting out-coached every week, getting outplayed on both sides of the ball. But in terms of the quarterback position, I think he was hampered by the injuries. I think he wasn't as accurate during the back half of that season as he was, in 2022 anyway. And certainly they didn't handle the blitz well at all. He didn't. The coaching staff didn't. In some respects, the offensive line kind of disappointed, not playing up to their extremely, high standard that we've come to expect. It was kind of like across the board, the team underperformed offensively. And, it's a new start, new offensive coordinator, new offense. So we'll see how it all gels as they kind of continue here during the summer. I would mostly say that they mainly got out-coached last year, and the offense became really vanilla and predictable.
So do you think that changes this season now that you have a respected offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, and you want to talk about respected? Vic Fangio comes in here. I don't know how much better he would have made the defense last season, but he walks in here, and I think you already feel a sense of confidence with him as the defensive coordinator.
At a minimum, he gives you – there's my radar detector. I'm in the car, by the way. Sorry.
Would you slow down, Jimmy? Slow down.
Well, the radar detector wasn't telling me to slow down. It was just telling me there's danger ahead. But anyway, the Fangio hire gives them some floor base level of competency that they didn't have last year. When they hired Sean Desai, I think they were optimistic about his ideas and what he could bring to the Eagles defense. Didn't work out, and then they just made the asinine switch from Desai to Matt Patricia, which once they did that, everything fell apart from there. So you bring in Fangio. They've been trying to run versions of Fangio's defense since they hired Jonathan Gannon back in 2021 after they fired Doug and the gang. But yeah, it's now they have like the real guy. They have the guy who runs the offense, runs the defense that they've wanted to run for the past 3-4 years. And so far, I think that the players respect him. Certainly, will to be determined if they like him and whether that matters or not. But he's an old school coach, been doing it for like 4 decades, and he'll bring at least some base level of competency to that side of the ball.
Jimmy, people asked, and he was asked himself, what do you do here to Nick Sirianni? Now with these guys in charge, with some of his, I guess, power stripped away. From what you've observed, what does Nick Sirianni do here?
Yeah, I mean, he's the quote-unquote CEO head coach now. And we've seen teams around the league have success with that kind of approach, determined if he can have the same level of success as guys in that similar position, like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. They haven't had a losing season in like 17 or 18 years, whatever it's been. Exactly. John Harbaugh with the Ravens, obviously they're a good team every year. I think they've had like 2 losing seasons over a similar span. So, I mean, we'll see, how he kind of manages the team as a whole throughout this season. And I think one of the best things he did, honestly, during his coaching career here in Philly so far was ceding control of play calling to Shane Steichen in that first season. I thought that showed a certain level of, I guess, like not having too big an ego and like not too, being self-aware that what he was trying to do offensively wasn't working. He turned over the reins to Steichen, and they turned that season around, made the playoffs. Steichen was the play caller again in 2022, obviously, and they go to the Super Bowl. So, I think there's a certain level of self-awareness and not having an ego to take on a role that you might not have envisioned when you became the head coach in the first place. But yeah, I mean, he's going to basically manage the team from a 60,000-foot level, and I think he has the respect of the players. I think the players like him. I think the players feel that he's a good teacher, and he makes a number of them better with the way that he coaches. To be determined if those core values that he just
he loves them,
loves to talk about in every press conference. To see if we'll see eventually if players kind of just get bored of hearing all that stuff. But yeah, he's got 2 really competent coordinators under him, and I think he's in a position where he's got a good roster, got a good offense. I think the defense has improved, and we'll see what he can do with it.
Speaking of Jimmy Kempski on the Comcast Business Hotline, Jimmy, the linebackers, let's just be blunt, they sucked last year. It was really bad last season. So I'll ask you, from your 1 week of camp so far, have you seen maybe a more improved group of players at the linebacker position? And is it improved more so because of the players they have acquired, or, again, going back to Vic Fangio and what he's able to do as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think the linebacker outlook is better heading into this camp than it was last year. Last year, they had a lot of eggs in the Nakobe Dean basket, where he was the LB1, and he was going to be a 3-down linebacker. He had played, I think, like 30 or 40 something snaps, I want to say, in his rookie season in 2020. And they were just expecting him to come in and be, the top linebacker on the team. Didn't work out, obviously because he got hurt a couple times. And then they just had nothing there. After, a guy they signed during training camp, and Zach Cunningham basically became their best linebacker. He's still a free agent right now, which kind of goes to show you what they had linebacker last season. The number 2 guy heading into camp was Nicholas Morrow, who was just kind of a disaster at times last season. So this year they head into camp with Devin White, with Zach Bond, who has kind of been a surprise guy at the linebacker spot. I think when he was signed, people saw him more as like an edge rusher or an edge player than they did an off-ball linebacker. And then Dean will be back. So far, Dean's been mostly running with the second-team defense. He's gotten some reps with the first-team offense, certainly. But I think their outlook is a little bit better. One thing I will say about Devin White is that dude can run. He had a play yesterday where this is a little dump down to the flat to Will Shipley, and boom, he was there in half a heartbeat. Limited to play to like a 1 or 2 yard game, but you just see how fast that guy is. This guy was 5th overall pick in I think it was the 2019 draft. Was one of the best defense. I mean, he was like a star player during the Buccaneers Super Bowl season in 2020. Had a down year last year, of course. Got benched by the Buccaneers last year, but that dude has talent and he can run. And we'll see if what he can do in this Vic Fangio defense. But I think he's a player that is like. I think other players look at him and go, "Okay, that guy's legit." Like, forget about like what his history was at the Buccaneers, down season rep. I think players look at him and they go, "That guy can play. That guy can run. That guy's physical. He could be a good player. We'll see."
All right, Jimmy, we appreciate it, man. We love talking to you as always. We'll be bugging you as the season continues, and enjoy Pad Day. Big day for the Beats, man. You get to watch some pads
and watch the pace of traffic. Do not try to exceed it. You'll get there.
Well, the big days for the beat writers are the next 2 days when they have off.
No, yeah, exactly. I'm sure you enjoy those days as well. Jimmy, thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Jimmy Kempski on the Comcast Business Hotline from the Philly Voice.
I didn't know people had radar detectors anymore.
I think people still do.
Like
don't
honestly,
people do that with insurance? Like it tells, like it keeps track with the insurance policy. My buddy has it. If you go over a certain speed limit, they could raise your insurance price.
My insurance would, no joke, be $1 billion.
Right,
by the way, this is a touchy subject because you got the insurance premium comes in every year.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing at the fact is no tickets, no accidents.
And your insurance went up.
Like $700.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the frick are you talking about?
Well, so I've been calling in your license plate number, so you've been cutting me off in traffic.
Look, I said, but I've done one of those driver things where you put in the app.
Right, you get a discount for doing it, but if you break the rules.
No, they don't penalize you if you don't. They don't penalize you if you don't. But if you agree to work under a really discounted rate, some of them will let you do that and monitor.
I know my buddy does that.
That's a little scary.
Love what he said about Devin White.
So did I.
Now, a lot of people said when he first got signed, "Oh, this dude's cooked."
I don't know how you can be cooked at 26.
He might not be cooked. He may just have bad practice tendencies, may have not listened to Todd Bowles, which you should. Like, Devin White's not absolved of blame for what went down in Tampa Bay. Like, he got benched, right? It was so bad that he ended up getting benched.
Right.
But there were people that were basically saying, he was a running back that that carried the ball 400 times a season for the last 5 or 6 years, and that he's Austin Eckler. Like, no, the guy's still athletic. He just needs to be coached up better. Maybe Vic Fangio's that guy, even though, look, Todd Bowles is a tremendous defensive coach. But hopefully Vic Fangio finds something in him.
Todd Bowles a smart man, too.
Yeah, but that's what, so I can't, go full excitement when I hear that from Jimmy, but it is a good sign to hear how explosive that guy still is on the field.
I'm excited to see. There are a lot of, as we've said, though, there are a lot of question marks. There are a lot of what we're hoping for, wishing for, wanting that have to come through. So
yeah, but healthy skepticism is warranted, especially with the defensive side of the ball. It's good that everything we're hearing is positive,
right?
Though.
And that's what I said. This camp has just been so much fun.
It has been. It's been fun to follow.
That's
why
it.
I'm glad that we had 2 beats on today that are covering the camp closely, and I love that we had Adam Kaplan on, who's more of a national view, even though he does Inside the Birds. But it's been a lot of great Eagles discourse today with our great guests, and we appreciate it. You can hear all those on 97.5thefanatic.com.
And
it's an exciting time for
and
Eagles.
YouTube, too.
And our YouTube. Yeah, that's right.
Haley gets them right up on YouTube for you. So if you're just interested in that, go back and check it out.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Haley, for doing that. All right, coming up next, we continue the Phillies discussion. An educated Phillies discussion. At least that's what we're trying to do. And again, we'll reset our topic from the Eagles from earlier today. What are we assuming? Because people think we're assuming a lot, John. Or what do we believe is as close to fact as possible?
Right.
We got a lot more in store for you. Also, stock that we want to see rise with the Eagles. It's Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Bagster. It's a dumpster in a bag. You can get yours today at Home Depot and Lowe's. You need details? Go to Bagster.com.
It is 9:28 on Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Still to come, we have our crossover with Bob Cooney. We were unable to do that the last couple of shows because of the press conference.
Those Eagles coaches got really chatty.
They get in the way, and that also means we haven't been able to do the Kincade Salciunas Key 3, so that's still to come on the show. But let's check out the text line. We'll get to some calls as well. I know we've been talking a lot of Eagles today, but clearly the Phillies are still what's driving people insane right now because people would rather complain than be excited for an Eagles season that's ahead because we're in the here and now with the Phillies, so I do get it. I'm just not panicking as much as a lot of Phillies
that's what
fans
I don't
are.
get.
That's what I don't get.
I've been through enough baseball seasons to know that every team goes through this.
All right, so let's get an Eagles text in, Connor, based off of our topics today. And then what do we have on the Phillies? But we'll start with the Birds.
This is perfect because this texter says his name is Big Boy from Northside.
What's up,
Big
Boy?
I'll take the mystery out of Nakobe Dean. He looks like Kevin Hart out there, way too small for this league. Someone come get their little brother.
I think that's accurate.
You're going to make that's pretty bold.
I don't want to.
What he looks like, if you're just saying he looks like it, that's okay.
It's hyperbolic, but it's.
He played in the best conference in college football against the best talent in America, and he was a dominant player.
But I will say this, John. How many times have you heard could this Alabama team beat the
No, I don't believe that.
No, they can't
No,
because the professional players are better.
No, but I do know that the players that he was dominating against are the best players in the country when you go by the draft and you go by things. So I don't believe he wasn't too small then. I don't believe he's too small now. What I do believe is he's gotten dinged up.
He has.
And that's not good.
I only really remember one play of note so far. And look, he has not had many opportunities. We talked to Jimmy Kempski about it. He did not play, it was Jeff McClain. He did not play that much in his rookie season, and then all of a sudden was anointed as the starting linebacker last year, and then he got hurt. But before he got hurt, I only really remember one play. I think he got a stop behind the line of scrimmage on a goal line play, which was great. He burst through the hole, made the running back lose 2 or 3 yards, and that was early in the season when the Eagles were winning football games. But other than that, it's not good when I can really only think of a play on one hand, and it's one finger.
No, it hasn't.
That's not good.
There's no defense for what, he has not been able to show. I mean, anybody spinning it any other way.
And I feel bad. He talked about it yesterday. He actually spoke to the media yesterday. We haven't played anything from the Kobe, but he talked about how he was injured following his rookie season. And he was hurt until basically late into training camp last year. So he had to quickly revamp, quickly get ready, kind of like what Cooper DeJean's going to have to go through this year. But Cooper DeJean's not getting named a starter.
Right.
Nakobe Dean was named a starter. So that's tough for him, for a guy that didn't really have as much time to practice, and is all of a sudden your starting middle linebacker at a position that was already weak. But, man, I don't know. As much as I feel for him when he says that, they brought in guys like Miles Jack just to kind of compete. And that guy retired.
I got to tell you, I'm so excited by what I've heard today from guys who have their eyes on NFL training camps and hearing about the positivity. I turned to you at the last break and said, "Man, there's a lot of positivity."
Yeah.
As far as just things they're seeing, positive signs and great energy. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. All right, what do we have on the Phillies, Connor? Because I know we're still talking things out here.
Yeah, so Lou checks in here, and he brings up something that a couple people have on the text line today. He says the runners in scoring position issue has been popping up at different points all year. It's indicative of a team that lives on the long ball. The other day, Mike Schmidt made a great observation about how guys need to change their approach when guys are on base with 2 outs. Now,
okay,
here's what I'll say, because I looked this up.
Mike Schmidt's listening. He wants to hear your insights on this.
The Phillies have the 11th highest average in baseball with runners in scoring position this year. And the teams above them are not exactly the who's who of great baseball teams.
Now, but I'm going to say this. I don't think it was that long ago when they were third.
I got you.
It's third to 11th is a major drop-off.
Okay, well, let's look at some of the teams that are below them as far as runners in scoring position average, because Baltimore is 17th.
Okay.
The Dodgers are 18th. Like, there are some good teams down there. The Minnesota Twins who won a series against you, they're 25th.
Right.
Like, there are some teams that are the St. Louis Cardinals, Pittsburgh Pirates, who are both in National League wildcard contention, 26th and 27th. Like, yes, runners in scoring position is important, but I don't know. The top 10 teams are not exactly teams that are running away with great records.
Right. And look, all these teams have different approaches. Like the Kansas City Royals are number one.
And
with 293.
They're an interesting young team.
They're having a good season.
They might be that Diamondbacks type team.
Well, and speaking of the Diamondbacks are second. With runners in scoring position, they're hitting 280 this year. They're not a good baseball team this season. Now, during the playoffs last year, they came through.
Boy, did they do really well, yeah.
With runners in scoring position, they came through because they weren't living and dying, by the home run ball. So all these teams do it differently. Like the Nationals are 8th.
The Tigers are 9th.
The Tigers
right,
are
exactly.
terrible. Right. But I'll also say this, not as many opportunities.
Right. Like, I don't want to say we overvalue hitting with runners in scoring position because that's literally how you score runs in baseball. But I think when you see a team that's in the top half of the league and has the record to back up that, not just that they have that stat, but other stats that show they're doing stuff well, it doesn't bother me as much.
I'm not the biggest fan of Sundays with Schmitty, but some of the insights he does have are interesting. And I know one of the things that he points to is that, he always will point to the choking up on the bat, the
right,
and how
shortening your swing.
Enough of the Phillies players don't do it down 2 strikes. And I think he's sort of giving a message that he definitely disagrees with Kevin Long.
But hold on.
He definitely disagrees with his approach on some things, and he shares it often.
The only guy I see really choking up in baseball with 2 strikes is Jeff McNeil.
Jeff McNeil's
like everybody's swinging. Like that whole choke up is not the way baseball is played anymore.
Like,
now you can you could say you don't like it. You could say that you don't. But I don't think that's a Kevin Long thing. I think that's baseball.
And he'll point too as to how often the Phillies are getting out on pitches that are way out of the strike zone for the 3rd strike.
Right, they're chasing.
And he's like, it's just the chase. And he says, not to chase can be taught.
And they tried doing that this offseason. They did. That was an emphasis.
I think Castellanos has appeared to be better at it, but then he was ahead of last year's strikeouts. But he was also much more productive.
Yeah, stuff can be tricky like that where the eye test tells you they've been better and putting together better approaches, but the numbers don't always show it. It's very weird. And the Mike Schmidt thing is interesting because he's an all-time great hitter and just baseball player in general.
People say he's the greatest third baseman in the history of the sport, and if he's not number 1, he's 2 or 3.
But when I see the age of 74, and I understand when he played the game compared to how the game is approached today, it's not an argument about what's right or what's wrong, what's better or what's worse. It's just accepting that guys are not taught to play the game the way that Mike Schmidt was, and for better or for worse, we're kind of at a point where we need to accept that.
It's the bunting conversation all over again.
Exactly.
Oh, why doesn't that guy just drop the bunt? Because he hasn't bunted since he was probably 6. Which
I think is criminal, by the way.
It might be.
It's to me, it's how about this? I think it's criminally stupid that guys don't. Well, he doesn't bunt. He doesn't know how to bunt. It's completely ridiculous.
But does there come a point to you? I'll ask you this, John. Does there come a point to you? Let's use the bunting conversation as just an example for all of this.
Yes, as an example.
Is there a point where you just will come to terms with the fact that people don't do it anymore and it's not worth even thinking about?
I would say it comes to the point where I've come to the point of realizing that baseball has become a slave to people who never played or coached the game and their philosophies. Yes, I'll say that.
Well,
because
that doesn't sound like you're letting it go.
No, it's not. No, what I'm going to say is no, but I'm resigned to the fact that that's where baseball is.
Okay,
because I see it, and I see that look who's been hired to head up our new analytics department.
Yeah, but this goes back. But this goes back to high school. You know what I mean? Like JT Realmuto. I always use him as an example, right? Because everyone goes, I remember there was a game last year where people were so upset that he didn't drop a bunt to move a runner over.
Yep.
JT Realmuto probably batted cleanup in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, college, you name it. Like JT Realmuto probably batted cleanup. You never have your cleanup hitter bunt, right? So like, there's a lot of guys like that. The prime example of them not teaching bunting, not just professionally, I'm saying way back, right? Even when these guys are kids, is Johan Rojas. The guy can't hit. And he can't bunt. Right? He's the prime example of a guy that should know how to bunt, but he doesn't.
Should be a better bunter.
But that's just the sport nowadays.
I guess, and two, I've been around long enough to have watched teams that actually spent time learning. I remember when the Braves pitchers put up $100,000 each in the beginning of a baseball season when pitchers batted.
Well, yeah.
And they would put up money in a pot, and they would get so many points for a walk, so many points for a sacrifice bunt, so many points for, like, they learned, these guys weren't, a lot of them weren't hitting. They would come and go, I didn't hit for many years of
because that's all they
their
did.
pitching
All
career.
they did was focus on bunting.
Right. And so, no, they didn't. But no, they focused on hitting, too. I mean, and would actually, batting practice, here's what you want to do, because they knew they weren't going to hit home runs.
Well, of course not. They
And
were
it
the
wasn't going to be.
pitchers.
But it's I can't believe when I just hear, well, he can't lay down a bunt.
Well, that's
wow.
That's the way that it is.
And I'm saying
I disagree with it too. Like
it's
I
crazy
hate,
to
I
me.
hate the ghost runner on second, and you can't bunt the guy
But
over.
that's
at
what's
third.
also tough about the approach conversation.
Like if you're if you have the ghost runner on second, and you have somebody coming up that can lay down a bunt.
Yeah, I mean,
why wouldn't you do that? I don't understand.
I completely agree with you, John, but that's just the way guys are being taught
The way it
these
is
days.
isn't a good enough explanation. No.
It shouldn't be, but it kind of has to be.
All right, coming up next, we have the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3, our 3 best minutes from today's show. And then, of course, our crossover with Bob Cooney. Always love talking to our man, Bobby. It is Kincade and Salciunas right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Time now for an Olympic update.
Westwood One Sports presents this special.
Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. We got our Key 3 coming up in about 4 minutes, followed by our crossover with one Bobby Cooney. Real quick, a little bit of NFL news.
What we got?
It's a shame because I thought he was very talented. He just unfortunately dealt with a lot of injuries, but it makes me, I giggle because I think about the amount of Eagles fans that clamored for him to get opportunities last year.
Okay, what is it?
Rashad Penny has been placed on the retired list. So it looks like Rashad Penny is retiring from the NFL. Do you remember how many people called in? And
we constantly would have calls about it.
Give him a shot. Give him a shot.
I wanted to know why he wasn't getting a shot. So I didn't.
Maybe because
I wasn't clamoring.
Maybe because he was washed.
Well, I understand. I wasn't clamoring for him to play, but I was definitely wondering why we didn't see more of him.
Yeah, it felt like a weird signing considering how little they used him.
Well,
not that he was expensive, but
he wasn't expensive at all. He didn't even get $1 million. Like he was
cheap,
extremely cheap. So they basically said, "Nah, well, we're not paying him anything, so we don't need to dress him." Honestly, my biggest question about running back was not why isn't Rashad Penny dressing? It's why aren't they using DeAndre Swift more? Like, why are they using Kenneth Gainwell so much? Like, those were my questions.
But those
not Rashad Penny.
Those caused the Rashad Penny questions because it's like, well, you're not using DeAndre Swift, and Rashad Penny's probably the only other guy with like starting kind of experience, and then you're running Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. It's like, why is he not getting the chance? Why is Swift not getting enough carries? What are you doing?
I think that should just tell you even more why Rashad Penny wasn't dressed, that he wasn't even good enough to play over Kenneth Gainwell and DeAndre Swift. In the eyes of the Eagles coaches.
Look, sometimes coaches get it wrong. I don't think they got it wrong.
I don't think they got this one wrong. I just saw Ray Dunn tweet out, "Oh, how I miss getting calls talking about his lack of snaps with the Eagles."
Well, we didn't know, though. Like, we didn't know why he was being, and
I think they just told you. Like,
they tell us now. I mean, that's
it's kind of like the Brandon Marsh thing. Like, Rob Thompson hasn't straight up sat behind a microphone and said, Brandon Marsh is not an everyday player. Brandon Marsh, we believe that he can hit left-handed pitching. They tell you by penciling him in the lineup against right-handed pitching and not against left-handed pitching.
He had a good weekend, by the way.
He did. He's striking out way too much. We were talking about this before the show.
I mean, when you go a 90 strikeout, a 90 at-bat stretch where you strike out half the time, that's not a small sample size.
And that has always been my biggest problem with Brandon
holes
Marsh.
in the swing.
He's a guy who strikes out way too much for a guy that doesn't have the offensive production to at least back it up. Like Kyle Schwarber, you deal with it.
Right.
Guy's going to hit 50 home runs,
I'm
right?
not telling you he's Bryce Harper. I'm just saying that the state of the outfield, he should probably get more opportunity.
Well, too, he cost you another run last night, not playing a ball well off.
Well, he was one of the only guys that gave you a run offensively.
No, but I'm saying is but defensively, he costs you.
That's true.
He does not play a
13-4 would have looked significantly.
It doesn't have to happen in that game. And you know it.
By the way, he has the most defensive runs saved of anyone who's played over 100 innings in left field.
In left field, no. Left field, sign me up.
I got you.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
He is center field. You suffer when he's in center field. It is a step back defensively in a big way.
Compared to Rojas.
Yes. Significantly a step back.
Totally agree. No one will argue.
He has not learned to play the walls yet in that building. I'm a little surprised. It's been 3 years.
Well, he's been moved around all over the place. Kind of hard.
He's played center a lot.
Yeah, he has.
He does not know. He'll run right up against that wall.
Do we think he has trouble with his peripherals because of the hair and beard?
Maybe. Should he shave it? 610-632-0975. Did he get cleaned up?
Yeah, he got cleaned up. He looked good last night. I mean, he looks like nice. He got a little trim job going on.
Right, but the hair's still there.
Of course. He's going to do that. Going to do that.
We've reached the can Brandon Marsh see portion.
I think it's a great question.
His dad's looking down and saying, "Get a haircut, kid."
Dude, does anyone need LASIK? Remember Jameis Winston?
Yeah, dude.
Once he had the LASIK, he was going to be a great quarterback. All right, we have our crossover with Bob Cooney coming in a few minutes, but it's time now for the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3.
Now, the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3. Today's best.
When it comes to the Eagles, what are we assuming or what do we know? What's fact what's assumption when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's start with the quarterback, all right, because that's the biggest thing. All right, I do not agree with you that he's going to play better than 2022 because I don't want to assume that he's going to play better than 2022.
Right, that is an absolute assumption on my part.
Okay.
But the fact is, what level does he play to? I can assume that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
And that, I want to say more than assume. I know that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year because I don't think what happened the second half of last year with Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, whoever you want to blame when it came to the offense, I think that got fixed.
How about this one? If you're talking about quarterbacks, he is a guy in Kellen Moore who produces, never having his guy is always in the top 25% of quarterbacks.
Okay.
So then that would be top 8. And that's where we thought Jalen Hurts sort of ended up.
Right.
I think we had him 7th
when
on
we
our
did
list.
When we did our little draft,
we had him 7th or 8.
7 or 8. And oh, by the way, he does have the benefit of playing with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I will tell you, those two wide receivers, it is a fact, or you can make a strong case that they are the best duo in the NFL. We're now joined by the great Adam Kaplan. Adam, good morning, man. How are you today?
By the way, getting Kellen Moore. This guy's a veteran offensive coordinator. I've talked to coaches who work with Kellen. Very excited about what Kellen does. And boy, Hurts is really taken to the scheme. It didn't look like so in the OTAs, but now it does. So things are looking a lot better here.
Now, the $1 million question that Connor Thomas tweeted out yesterday. Can somebody please figure out what the hell is wrong with the Phillies? It's the $1 million question. Now, here's the thing. The Phillies are not playing good right now.
No, they're playing poorly.
They're not playing good baseball. That should not mean, and we touched on this in the first segment, that does not mean that they are a bad baseball team. So here's what I also want to try to do. Let's try to figure out what is wrong with the Phillies. If you come to the table with, I always thought they were bad, I think you don't know what you're watching. That means you think a lineup of Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Marsh, Realmuto, Castellanos, Stott, and Hayes is a bad baseball team. If you think that's a bad baseball team, I would like to bring your attention to the Chicago White Sox lineup. This lineup is very good. If we want to talk about the rotation and you think that's a bad rotation, I think you're incorrect in that assumption. But if you come to the table with, hey, this guy's a hole in the lineup or this guy is killing you defensively, then let's have a conversation because there are legitimate things that we can discuss. But to just go all overboard and say they stink, they have an 8.5 game lead.
That 8.5 game lead, and the magic number is 49.
So despite all the losing, the Phillies still have an 8.5 game lead over the Braves and a 9 game lead over the Mets.
The Phillies have never had a magic number of 49 on July 30th. So just think of it this way.
Right.
They've never been in a better position in their entire franchise history. And it's still, they suck. They're awful. This is bad. Told you so. And first of all, who did you tell?
Right, you didn't tell
Who did you tell? Because I didn't hear from any of these people in April, May, June. It's all of a sudden, it's, sky's falling. I don't get it.
For the Philadelphia Inquirer, Inquirer.com, Jeff McClain joins us. Jeffrey, good morning. How you doing today?
Kobe Dean, they've been working on a fair amount of blitzes, and so yesterday I got to see him kind of in that role, and he looked pretty good to me. He's, fully healthy after the foot surgery. He's been running mostly with the second team, but there are times they'll throw him out there with the first team, so I don't think anyone's really locked in the plate.
From the Philly Voice, does a tremendous job covering the Philadelphia Eagles. Jimmy Kempsky joins us. Jimmy, what's going on, man? Good morning.
There's rarely a ball that was hitting the ground the first 3 days of camp. The one thing I might nitpick a little bit is the ball is not coming out quick at times. There's been a lot of coverage stacks through the first 4 practices. Of course, he's learning a new offense under Kellen Moore, so that's kind of to be expected.
I believe it would be a failure for the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, if they do not win the NFC East. I'm not saying the NFC.
No,
I'm
NFC.
not saying the Super Bowl. I'm saying the division. A team that should have won the division last year had they not had the epic collapse that they did that I don't think was just on the field related. I think there are a lot of other issues, and we all believe, at least so far, that some of those issues are no longer here. All right, that's the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3 best minutes from today's show. We haven't done it in a while because we couldn't find 3 minutes. Haha. No, it's because of all the press conferences. But
Bob said we couldn't do it because we couldn't find good 3 minutes.
Well, yeah, and he tells us what he thinks, and I appreciate it. That's why I respect you, Bob Cooney.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bobby. Bob, I texted your son.
All right, cool.
Just want to let you know. Me and your son are now
better
friends.
than texting my daughter.
That's better never happened.
I texted your son. You know why? Because you gave me his phone number.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I'm texting with Kyle.
I broke a rule. I always have a
Cooney.
rule. When somebody asks me for a number, I get in touch with that person first and say, is it okay if I forward your number to this person? I did not get in touch with him to ask him if it was okay.
Oh, well, I threw you under the bus. I said I got your number from your dad.
That's all right.
So
no sweat.
I
wasn't going to deny it.
He's going to be on the show tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're gonna book him too, Bobby. Well, speaking of the show, what do you got coming up today?
Wrong with that, a lot going on today. We're going to obviously we got to take a look at this Phillies team. One of the things I was thinking about last night, and I brought up on the air before, when they were so good and going so great, is that who they were? And then you're going to hit this spot and you say, is this who they are?
Right.
I guess it's somewhere in between, hopefully more towards what they were than what they are. We might have a Phillies guest in the 1 o'clock hour. Reggie Jackson signed with the Sixers this morning. He's going to join us around 11:15, somewhere around there.
You have any concerns about the age of the roster?
Oh, sure.
Well, he's only 78 years old.
I mean, a bunch of 30-year-old guards. Yeah.
He can help with Red October,
Thank
though.
you. You got it. I was waiting for one of these guys to get it.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said he's only 78 years old.
I got, Sheltonham. Yeah. So we'll see. But, a lot of Eagles talk. Nick Sirianni said something yesterday that I thought was really cool. So I want to dive into that about talking about Jalen Hurts. So,
is that
I think
Hurts
the
running backs and stuff?
Yeah, I think Hurts is having a really, really good camp. And I'm not saying he's getting overlooked, but I don't think we've talked about it an awful lot.
He's getting coached this year.
Yeah, could be.
I don't think he got coached last year.
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference.
The Kellen camp is wide open.
Yeah.
The gates are open.
Dude, I've been with
Get
you,
in that
man.
Kellen camp,
I've been
baby.
tailgating at your camp.
It better work.
Yeah, dude, or everybody's coming after you.
You'll be like, you idiot.
It's our fault that the Phillies are still losing.
Yes.
That's how I know people are starting to listen to the show, because we're now catching heat when the Phillies are losing baseball games. So if Kellen Moore is not having a good season, your mentions are coming.
Oh, I'm going to get crushed.
Bobby.
And we're going to talk an awful lot because Ray Dunn wants to talk about this. Rashad Penny looks like he's going to retire today. So
you called it.
Amy Fadul. Brendan Petrilli just called it up.
I just saw the video.
Did you? That's funny.
Week 1, you said he wasn't going to play.
No
and
chance.
Bob got pushback from people who cover the Eagles.
Yeah, that's right. Good job, Bobby.
Good job, Bob.
All right, Bobby, we'll be listening.
Sometimes you see it.
Hey, support life-saving cancer research. Join us and our generous partner, Pierce Phelps, Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning Contractors, and make a donation today to the American Association for Cancer Research. You can do it at 975thefanatic.com/AACR, because cancer research saves lives.
All right, back at it tomorrow. It is a Adam Schefter Wednesday. Put it in your phone now, 7:30 for Shefty tomorrow.
7:30 for Shefty.
Normally 8 o'clock. He'll be on at 7:30. We'll have a lot more planned for you guys tomorrow on another day of Kincade and Salciunas as we get closer and closer to show number 100, which is this Friday. Bob Cooney, Amy Fadul, Ray Dunn coming your way next. Everybody have a great rest of your day.